Hello and welcome back to the Facts of Facts, the only Facts of Life podcast that thinks that Joe was as insufferable as Mr. Parker this week.
Oh, wow. She was on a tear.
She
I
was. She was not. Season 5 Joe didn't start off that lovable. We'll say
oh,
that. Well, welcome back, Britt, and welcome back, Lovelies.
yes,
Season
thanks.
5.
Season 5. I was reflecting this morning as I was, preparing for this. Just this beautiful Los Angeles, actually rather nice morning. It's like a good 77, 78 degrees. And I was like, what a beautiful day. I'm so glad I'm up so early to do this thing that I don't really like doing. Anyway, but then I was like, but I was just thinking about, because I was so like, sort of like chuffed to like get back in the saddle, because we've been on hiatus for quite some time. And so I was like, maybe I actually, it'll be fun to see where everyone is. And I maybe out of some sort of, prisoner's amnesia, I forgot how annoying everyone is on this show. And not only that, but this show is like chaos. Every choice that's made in this show, it like from character development, motivation, dialogue, direction, it's bonkers. None of it makes sense. And which to be perfectly frank, makes it really kind of difficult for me to care about anyone because it vacillates so much. It flip-flops from like Mrs. Garrett's an amazing cook to Mrs. Garrett can barely like boil an egg.
She's an amazing cook. It just takes her like 20 times longer to achieve something than it would a normal cook, apparently.
So then she
But I
should
will say that's going to change next week.
she shouldn't be going into business by herself.
I do agree. I went. I just a little sneak preview for next week's episode. I went ahead and looked at the next episode. I was just kind of curious to see if Edna's Edibles was fully set up for the next episode.
Episode 3, because as I think we should tell our listeners, this is a two-parter.
This is a two-parter.
Which again, kind of hard for me to slip back into my Facts of Life watching habit when it's 2 parts. That's hard for me.
It is. The two-parters are definitely hard. Luckily, they're only really for big events, and we won't have another one until the finale of this season.
But is this season, 90 episodes long, like the usual?
26. but the way we're going to do it with 26 half hours, so 24 airings and 24 facts of facts.
Mm-hmm.
This is. This was I remember this episode extremely fondly.
Both parts or just the first part?
I mean, both parts, yes. I remember it as like a whole. The thing that I do not remember that was really shocking to me was Joe's motivations and behavior.
Yeah.
And just the ungratefulness of Joe.
In every conceivable way. She acted like a pill the whole time. She was, and yeah, as you said, ungrateful, but also like lashing out at everyone who's trying to help in every way. And then finally, like 1 minute before the end, she's like, maybe I should move in with you, Mrs. G. And then it's like, problem solved. But we spent an hour on this. We spent a fucking hour on Joe being like, no, I'm homeless. I have no money. I can't, I'm on probation. And it's like, well, get a fucking scholarship. Go into school.
Yes. Well, let's get into it. So the episode we're talking about is Brave New World,
Yes.
Parts 1 and 2, directed by Azad The Man Colada, and written by Linda Marsh and Margie Peters. So this is a pedigree episode.
Yes.
This is important for the development of the show.
This is not a pedigree episode. This is an episode that is going to be euthanized at the pound.
I don't think it was as bad as you say, but I will say that Joe was as unlikable as possible. So it's like,
yeah, no, but I'm just saying that it's not that it's as bad as I'm saying. It's that, listen, Dominik, I haven't done this in a while, and the insults are just coming fast and furious because she was so annoying, and this show was so crazy.
Yes, well, it's that odd transition episode that needs to get you to where we are going. And
yes.
it is Eastland's swan song. Say goodbye to Eastland, and we'll hear about it from time to time as Tootie and Natalie still attend.
Yeah,
but
I was thinking, because that's the thing, is that they must, because by the end of this episode, sorry, spoiler alert for everyone who's listening to this who hasn't seen this episode, which is inconceivable, but Tootie and Natalie move in with Joe and Mrs. Garrett, which, again, why is this ideal for anyone involved? But also, I imagine that, they must show up in their little Eastland uniforms from time to time just to make sure that everyone knows that they're still going to school.
Yes. School is still going to be discussed.
Yeah.
But they're now independent women living above a croissant shop.
Wait, is it a croissant shop, or is it a European deli?
It is a European deli. Formerly an Armenian one.
Indeed.
So we open at Langley College.
Oh, I was like, what is this? Where are we? It looked like we were actually shooting this inside of a tiny shoebox.
Okay, so you could really tell that what was going on here was we have a set, and part of it is Eastland, and we're going to need to shut that Eastland set down.
Yeah.
So we're going to just shoot in the kitchen, and we're going to rebuild Eastland to be Langley College.
Yeah.
And then they do that, and then they're like, oh, fuck, we also need to make room for Edna's Edibles. So I feel like both of those sets were smushed in the original Eastland set.
Yeah. I don't think they rented like a new, a different studio to build Edna's Edibles for the Facts of Life. Absolutely.
I mean, I've worked on shows that have done that, and especially considering this was like such a high profile show at a time when there was a lot more money, I'm sure they could have done that. But also the fact of the matter was there was like 6 billion sitcoms being made at the same time. Right. So studio space was at a premium. So I really do think that they jammed both those sets in there in the Eastland set. And like the minute that they're done, we'll get to see like the living room and all the shit that the rest of the house has. But they couldn't even bother to show us that in this episode, which also made it very weird because like Mrs. Garrett's son was like, I bought you this store. Cool. But he never mentions, and there's like an entire house attached to it.
Well, he did say that he said there's an apartment upstairs.
Yeah, but it's not an apartment upstairs. I mean, it is. Like, I understand that that's probably what they thought they were going to go for, and that is what he said. But so the way it works is there's like a swinging door on in the front of the register area, which leads you to the living room, which is a giant living room that has its own front door and like a back area that leads to another kitchen. Then there's this like round staircase that goes up, and in that round staircase it goes into like 2 different directions where both Mrs. Garrett's room, the girls' room, an attic, and obviously another restroom are all up there.
What the hell kind of fucking like Escher painting are they living in? I don't understand.
It is confusing, and it is. I think it's pretty cool, but it's just so weird that he
It's
was like, I got you this store when there's like an entire like mansion basically attached to it.
yeah, but it's also so bizarre because it's like they live in like Pee-wee's Playhouse at this point. You know, they have like Flory and Cherry, and you're like, there's also Starry. You know, it's like, what is happening in this show?
There's all of our barrel buddies. That place had so many fucking barrels, and those barrels will be. There's going to be a barrel plot. There will be a barrel plot coming up where Tootie and Natalie forget to line the barrels.
Oh, I was gonna say, let me guess, does Tootie get stuck in a barrel?
Oh, that would have been great. I love that episode. Anyway, so we're at Langley College. Blair is playing cards with some college students. She flirts with Barry. She tells him he has strong hands. And he's like, but all I ever had was a pair of deuces. And Blair laughs hysterically, calling him droll and implying that he reminds her of her last boyfriend, Leo, who also had strong hands and didn't understand her jokes.
But who is Leo?
Leo was that special guy that did paintings for her.
Ah, okay, yes. So
remember, like, Blair would make a joke, and the guy would be like, I don't know what you're saying, and she'd be like, you're hilarious. She's doing the same thing with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's her MO.
That is her skill.
Because that's the thing that I kind of I mean, how could I possibly have forgotten about this about Blair? Because the thing about Blair is you can never forget her hair, but also every single thing. I mean, I will say this about most of these characters are unbelievably self-involved and selfish. And everything is refracted through their needs. But Blair, the way that Blair communicates to anyone about anything is through herself. And it's like a compliment that is from her, you know? It's like this bizarre fixation that it's like, you know, that's an interesting thing that you just said. That reminds me of a genius thing that I did 5 years ago. It's like, you know, okay, so she's like the worst person. She's like the Cecily Strong character, the worst girl to start talking to at a party, you know?
I think the worst girl to start talking to at a party would be, honestly, any of the other three girls compared to Blair. If you really think about it, if you're at a party, you're talking to Tootie, you're trying to get out of there. If you're talking to Natalie, you're stuck there. She's great, but, like, you got to make her feel better about life. If you're talking to Joe, she's going to, like, move into your house and then punch you in the face because you didn't, like, clean it nice. So I prefer Blair and just seeing life through the prism of her hair. Barry,
you don't know it.
Barry is the male card player. He's played by Richard Cantor, who can also be found on an episode of Fame, an episode of Fantasy Island, the movies Baby It's You, Out of Control. In 1984, he got a main role on the TV show Finder of Lost Loves, which ran until 1985, and then he was never seen again. They need to make a show called Finder of Lost Richard Cantor.
Oh.
Anyway, an angry woman. She doesn't get a name. Barry got a name.
I know that this is like your job on the pod is to look everyone up and like learn about them. But sometimes I do get curious because there is you know, Mrs. Garrett's son Raymond comes later, and I was like, this guy is so familiar, and I had to, you know, I had to figure out who the hell that guy was. But then I was just looking through the rest of the cast on this episode, and it was like, what, girl playing cards, and then there was a guy. It was a guy playing cards, and I was
playing cards is actually Barry.
Oh, okay.
Like the credits list him as guy playing cards, but Blair was burying him over and over and over again.
I do like a good burying.
Yeah. So the angry woman though. She does not have a name. And she asks Blair, how many do you need? Implying cards. But then we open wide, and Blair is surrounded by men. And she's like, I think I've got all that I need, right, boys?
I was like, is this a gangbang? Are we going to try? Is that how this show is going to go?
I feel like they just got to college and she's already got like her posse of men watching her play poker. So
It's,
weird.
but it's Blair. And as I mean, obviously it's Blair. So hello. But again, later on, we get into the whole thing about why Blair needs to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning because of her incredibly laborious beauty routine, which takes 2 hours, 3 hours, just so that she can go to the bathroom to brush her teeth while all the other guys are standing in the hallway, like leering at her in her nightie or whatever. So I'm sure that obviously she's cultivated this.
Yes. Yeah. No, this is what she does.
Yeah.
And she does it well. So the angry woman.
To be perfectly frank, I thought that the angry woman was going to call her Bukkake Blair.
I mean, it's a little early in the day for that. For her.
For her, not for me.
That's one thing. Not for us. No, like we can bukkake the minute we wake up, but I feel like for like, they're just college kids playing poker at like 10 in the morning or whatever. So weird. So
Yes,
weird.
the choices of this, that's the thing about this show, is that, as I said, the choices are strange. So again, it's like they put them in these scenarios and then they make them say these odd things, and you're like, I get what you're doing. You're implying that she's a slut, but why do you need this poker nonsense format to get there?
I guess they were like college, like no more checkers. Now we've got poker.
I guess.
The only thing I can think. So the angry woman, the female card player, is played by Harriet Eikenson, who only has one other credit besides this. And that is a single episode of the TV show This Is the Life, which is a long-running religious series that ran from the 50s to 1988. Yes,
Wow.
it's where contemporary problems are solved with classic Christian solutions.
Wait, what's this show called?
This Is the Life.
And then she went on to guest star on an episode of The Facts of Life?
Yes, she only does shows with life in it. Yeah, that was the only two credits she's got in her life, which is maybe why she's such an angry poker playing lady. At least we've established that college freshman Blair is killing it.
Yeah.
Instantly. But then Joe rushes in, her albatross, and pushes one of the nameless boys out of the way just to grab Blair.
But the other thing about Joe and the men in this college, she's like physically very violent with all of them at all times. She kicks boys out of Blair's room twice at least, maybe three.
Same boy, but yes.
Like Barry, whatever.
Guy.
Oh yes, sorry, Guy.
So now we go into Blair's dorm room.
Yeah.
Which in which we hear some awesomely anonymous AOR instrumental music that all the college kids were listening to.
So this is the thing. So I was like, what's going on here? Why is this happening? It was so, again, unclear as to where this music was coming from and why it was so loud while they were having a conversation. They were screaming over it for at least 4 or 5 lines of dialogue until Blair decides to go over to her wall and bang on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like she lives in a tenement.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome, honestly. And was that a new New Yorker poster?
No,
that was the same one.
That's the same one that was in Helen Hunt's room in the first season.
They love that poster.
I have that poster in my bathroom.
What's so good about it? Well, I don't even.
Not because of this podcast. It was a gift from my father.
Well, because he's a huge Facts of Life fan.
That's right.
Anyway, so Joe says she's in trouble. Blair wants to know why. She guesses that Joe punched the dean of women, which sounds very on brand, especially for Joe these days. But no, Joe has a serious problem. Serious enough that, Blair stops the music. And then the guy on the other side is like, yeah, keep your blouse on.
And then Blair, it's like she's like, oh, I've never heard anything like that.
She really enjoyed that. Yeah, it's like as if years and years of all of her and her friends being tormented by a school of sexual predators meant nothing to her. She's like, he's implying that I can take my blouse off, and I love it. Apparently, the job Langley had promised to Joe fell through.
Yeah. So this is the thing. So Joe loses the job, so now she can't afford the dorm, which again, not an insurmountable problem.
No.
Because there are other jobs in Peekskill, one would imagine, probably other jobs at Langley campus, multiple jobs that you could probably find if Joe wasn't such a fucking piece of shit. It's like the wind got knocked out of her sails immediately, and she turned into this like ball of rage and depression, and was just rejecting any help.
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
I assume she no longer works at that mechanic place.
What happened? Why not?
I don't know, but she's like good enough that I feel like if she needed to, she could just go back there and be like, hey, Vinny, give me a job.
I feel like she could open up her own garage.
I agree. She's got the skills.
Yeah.
She can even work on European motorcycles all the way in Paris.
True.
Anyway, Joe won't be able to afford housing. What will she do? Blair suggests she trot herself down to the financial aid office, ask for more money, which she's apparently done. But that's only for hardship cases.
You are, Joe.
And Blair even tells her that.
Yeah. So the greatest thing is that she says, so Joe's like, but that's the thing. It's for people who are impoverished, which I can't call my parents impoverished. And Blair's just like, but you are. What's the problem here? Are you delusional?
Except that she didn't say it with disgust.
No.
I think to counteract Nancy McKeon's acting in this episode, where she was so sullen, Blair is like she's on Prozac. Every line, but you are impoverished.
But then she's like, let me cut you a check.
Well, she does say, if I offer to cut you a check, will you break both my
arms?
Tits? I assume.
Break my tits. Yeah. But that's the thing. That this is why I've heard this, I've seen this storyline with Joe so many times now.
So many times. Even Blair is like, are we doing this again?
Exactly. And that's why I was just like, that's the problem with this show, is that it's like you have to give Joe, because as we've said, Nancy McKeon is a pretty good actor, but she's been given nothing, because all she does, it's either she has no money or she won't swallow her pride.
It's always both of those things.
And it's like, you can't have both. And then it's like, I'm going to go sleep on a park bench. And it's like, okay, if
fun,
do it.
Then a handsome hunk knocks on the door.
Yes.
This is Guy. And he is hoping to borrow a cup of shampoo.
So this guy comes in wearing all of his clothes, wearing jeans, a shirt, a collared shirt, a sweater, as well as one tiny blue bath towel around his neck. He also has a haircut that looks remarkably like Blair's.
It's like Blair's stopped. It's the short Blair.
It's the short Blair. And so he comes in and he goes, can I borrow a cup of shampoo? And she says, with or without conditioner? And he goes, surprise me. And I was like, first of all, a cup of shampoo, obviously this is a cup of sugar joke, right?
Yes.
Duh. But also, a cup of shampoo is so much shampoo.
I know. I had that visual too.
And the thing is that Blair's hair is shorter this season. Not as short as the short Blair that this guy's that guy's sporting.
That guy's rocking, yeah.
But I could imagine that Blair in previous seasons would go through quite a lot of shampoo because of all of her hair. I mean, I have a lot of hair and I go through a lot of shampoo. But the other thing is that, so she goes with or without conditioner, right? And he's like, surprise me. So then I was like, did Blair just have one of her amazing ideas? Blair, unbeknownst to herself, invented 2-in-1 hair cleanser because this aired in 1983, and 2-in-1 hair shampoo and conditioner did not enter the market until 1986.
Really?
Yeah. So Pantene developed it and put it out to market in 1986. So do you think that Pantene, the people at Pantene, the, hair chemists at Pantene were watching this and they were like, okay, this girl with the great hair has a great idea. Let's put that shit in the same bottle.
I believe that all hair scientists, experts, and fans were glued to Facts of Life because of Blair's hair. So I'm certain they saw this.
Yeah.
No doubt. That's like saying a drag queen didn't watch last month's RuPaul's Drag Race. Most likely they did.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. But again,
I said drag waste. Just wanted to make sure if anybody heard that and was like, did you say drag waste? Yes. Yes, I did.
So
can we just, I also have something to say about this, which is that Guy needs conditioner.
Oh, good gracious, he does. But so does Blair, to be perfectly frank.
Yes, but of course Blair does. She's not asking the question. He's like, surprise me. You shouldn't be cavalier with that. You need to be conditioned so desperately. It's making me uncomfortable.
He's looking pretty dry.
It's just like hay on the top of his head.
Hey. Yeah.
Hey, Guy. Anyway, let's talk about Guy.
Yeah.
And he does come around to this, I will say. Because he comes back to be like, do you have anything for dry hair? And it's like, yeah, no shit. Conditioner. Don't be surprised. Anyway, so Guy is played by David Tiefen, Tiefen. Tiefen. He'll show up on a few more Facts of Life this season.
Half naked?
I don't believe so because honestly, I only remember him from the shirtlessness. I didn't even realize that Guy, the shirtless guy, was the same guy as the study date guy from when I was a kid. But I was like, oh man, this guy's in all these scenes. He supposedly has 5 more this season. I think he might just be kind of in the background or be like a hey Blair or whatever, but I could be wrong. I don't think there's a Guy subplot coming up though. He basically disappears after this. This was his first thing, and then in 1990 he shows up again with a movie that I happen to own on DVD.
What a surprise!
Hollywood Hot Tubs 2. I don't own many movies on DVD, about 15 that I happen to have the Hollywood Hot Tubs 1 and 2 DVD set. Don't really know why. And then he made a surprise.
You're a huge fan of a jacuzzi.
I do like a jacuzzi. I like to go to the jacuzzi. Remember that?
Yes.
I want to go to jacuzzi. Anyway, then he made a surprise late in life career resurgence last year with a bunch of shorts and a reoccurring role in the TV series Them. So go David Tiefen. Was not expecting that out of nowhere, but Also, I will say this: nice body, looks good. 30 years in the future. What? It's almost 40, but not 37 years in the future. He looks great.
He does. You sent me that picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did a then and now for Britt. He looks even better now. I mean, it's subjective, but he's got no hair.
Yeah.
Use that conditioner.
He should have used, seriously, he needed that conditioner.
It just snapped right off. Anyway, so the audience goes fucking nuts when so Joe grabs, when he's like, surprise me, Joe grabs some shampoo from the wall, shoves it in his chest, and pushes him out and goes, surprise! And the audience loves it. The audience loves it.
The audience goes wild.
Yes. Joe's incredulous that Blair would even care about someone's hair, but as Blair tells us, if he doesn't look good, she doesn't look good.
So, and that, folks, of course, is the very famous slogan for Vidal Sassoon.
That one I didn't even have to Google. That one I knew.
Of course not. I don't think anyone who was alive in the 80s and early 90s who was watching television at all could have not been encountered. If you don't look good, we don't look good. Because it's kind of it's simple and kind of funny, just because it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But also, I just wanted to bring up the fact that there was a I went down a tiny wormhole on Vidal Sassoon, who is a British hairstylist and who was the first celebrity hairstylist in the world. Yeah. So he was he grew up in, I think, working class in England and began in like a barber shop cutting hair. It was his passion, and then just got like really great at it and started giving famous people great haircuts like Mary Quant and Mia Farrow and people like that. So, and they gave them, he didn't start the trend, but he made it extremely fashionable for women to wear short hair rather than like big bouffantish hair from the 50s. So like hair in the 50s was like something that you'd go to the salon every few days to have done. It would be washed and then curled, dried, and then set. And then it was just like immobile. It was just on your head. And then as women started entering more and more into the workforce in the 60s and the 70s, they wanted more of a like wash and wear type style, and also something that was like less fussy and less old fashioned. And so they started wearing these more like cropped, cool bob styles that he made very fashionable. But also the other reason is that he became very famous is that then he moved to LA and kind of became, the stylist of the stars. But also, of course, he created a line of hair products that were in his salons. So it was like, you're going to get the salon experience at the Vidal Sassoon salon, but then also you can bring that stuff home and recreate it there, which was a sort of interesting brand extension. And of course, we've all seen, the commercials in the 80s and the 90s were, inescapable. So, I think I washed my hair with Vidal Sassoon shampoo and conditioner for, probably years in the 80s, because I think my parents just bought it because they were like, this sounds fancy, but I don't know. But anyway, I looked up one of the old commercials for Vidal Sassoon that ran in 1981. And this one had the tagline, if you don't look good, we don't look good. But it hadn't quite gotten to the like sexiness of the like mid 80s of the commercials, where it was just mostly like women, washing their hair and having it blow dried, and it's like the wind makes you look beautiful. It's like, if you don't look good, we don't look good. This one was 30 seconds of an almost unsingable jingle that had this in it, but also they hadn't quite figured out that they really wanted to focus on like glam at home. So they had a woman in the shower, then a man in the shower, a very old woman in the shower, 2 children in the shower, and they're all just like sudsing and rinsing, singing to this song. And then at the end, they all come out looking beautiful. And it's like, if you don't look good, we don't look good. And it's like, who is this for? The babies? The grandma? I don't
Everybody.
know here. Anyway, but the best part of it is that they gave in the weird song jingle that was in this commercial, they gave the "I love feeling sexy" to the grandma. So it's this old woman who's naked just singing about being sexy, which I don't mind, of course, but it's just a choice.
Well, I like that it was like, age positivity. So good on Vidal. I will say this. I feel like if it was a slogan for your salon, if you don't look good, we don't look good. That makes sense. We cut your hair, you look good. But shampoo, like I've never used shampoo and been like, oh, beautiful. Like it's clean, but like it can look many, many ways after I showered. So I just feel like I don't believe that it's going to make me look good as a shampoo. Also, can I ask you a quick question about VO5 hot oil?
Yes. Do you want to know about it?
I just want to know what it does. I remember, I never thought about it until what we were talking about Vidal so soon, and I had all these flashbacks, and then I was like, "What was that hot oil?"
So
I have 5 sisters. They would like heat up oil and then put it in their hair, give me like a little tub.
it came in a tube.
Yes,
that was
and you'd like one of those like twist and break the plastic.
It was plastic and clear, and it was this, urine colored thick liquid. And you would like heat up you would get hot water from your tap and then like put it in a cup, drop your hot oil in it, as though that is scientific and gonna make it better. And then you'd twist off the little top and then put it in your hair. This is the exact product that Guy needs for his split ends. That's
Got it. Okay.
It's a deep conditioner.
All right. Do they still make it?
I don't know.
I will look up that later.
Ask me these questions yesterday so that I could have come prepared.
It was honestly, VO5 hot oil hasn't been in my head for about 30 years, and it wasn't until we were just talking now that I thought of it. But anyway, Blair very kindly says that they will find someplace cheaper for Joe to live, but Joe has to stop harshing her mellow. These are her carefree years. And then she folds her arms and pouts.
I know.
Joe sarcastically apologizes for ruining Blair's collegiate experience. And Blair, who seems a lot more zen this year than in previous years, or maybe it's just she's a lot more zen than Joe. And so by comparison, either way.
Anyone in comparison to Joe, Pol Pot in comparison to Joe this week would be better and more empathetic.
Yes, well, Blair takes the high road and says she didn't mean it the way that it came out. And they've been through a lot together. And, Blair always figures out a solution.
Yeah.
She tries to physically turn Joe's scowl upside down.
Yeah.
And then informs us that Mrs. Garrett and the Toots are on their way. And that for some reason we should not clue them into this plot, but I do not know why.
Yeah.
Maybe because they booked an hour-long premiere. And that's why we shouldn't tell anybody.
So speaking of, which is, and that's the thing about, that's why I was like, why is this a two-parter? Because the thing is that the first half is, I would say, pretty dense with dialogue, incident, moving around, different people, different sets, introducing new business. And then the second half, it's like air escaping a balloon. And the second half could have been 10 minutes.
Let me ask you this. That sounded so confrontational, but it wasn't meant.
Okay, Joe, you don't need to.
What I wanted to ask you was, obviously, I know very well, and I've told you as well, but I know what's going to happen in this episode. So for me, it seems like it's the inevitable, which is like, get to it. But I wondered, is it the same for you? Was it just super obvious where they were going, like instantly, that this was going to be Joe's job at Mrs. Garrett's shop and things
No.
like that? Okay, good.
I mean, aside from the fact that you told me that at some point they're all basically going to be working at her shop, right? So I was like, I'm aware of that. But like at this one, I was just sort of like, oh, so the trajectory here is to just set up the fact that Edna's Edibles exists. Like that we're going to get there. I don't know why we needed this Joe plot in this. We could have had that in the second episode and just had that drama.
That's true, but because this aired as 1 hour, I think they wanted to
Fair.
end. But I agree. I do think that it was totally done. What?
It seemed kind of incoherent in that way, in that, as I was saying before, is that this show kind of flip-flops a lot, in that it's like, in this first episode, as we'll see, Mrs. Garrett has these like constant panic attacks, you know, having to basically do her job at Eastland, which is cooking things for people. And like is basically being told by Mr. Parker that she's an incompetent fool, which apparently, according to the people that she feeds, yes, she is. And then by the second episode, it's like, oh yeah, no, of course she can have this small business and definitely not run it into the ground. So as I said, it's this weird vacillation and flip-flopping that it doesn't make any sense, where it's sort of like, you just set up the fact that this is a huge deal that Mrs. Garrett is going to take on this business, but you just established that she can't boil an egg without shrieking and laughing maniacally and like shitting her pants.
Yeah. She seems not good at her job in this episode. I will agree with you there. She is like over it, clearly.
Yes,
so
true.
It's like, if Joe and Blair aren't gonna be, I have to be stuck with Natalie and Tootie. Jesus.
The other thing is that it's like she seems not good in her job in this episode. Again, in that way where it's like she also has a pilot's license. What is this show?
Why doesn't she go
teach some people how to fly?
Probably better money in it.
Fly a plane for parachuters. You know, like she could find a new job. I didn't need this stupid. It's like they just established that she's shitty at doing food, and then it's like, no, she's great at it in the second episode. This is her dream. She's so good at it.
Well, it's funny. I do, just to go on this. One of the first catering jobs. This is what I was talking about in the next episode. One of the first catering jobs, Mrs. Garrett is doing something for Blair, for like a gamma party, and they have less than, it's like the party is that night, and they have not, it's the afternoon, and they haven't even discussed with Blair what they're cooking. And Mrs. Garrett is totally zen about it. She's like, well, we had to get started. And it's like, you had like weeks to, I don't know. It's mind blowing.
It's the strange. It's like time management issues.
Anyway, so now we're back in Eastland for its final hurrah.
Yeah.
Mrs. Garrett is recording one of those, obviously, those cassette letters everybody does.
So Mrs. Garrett is talking to herself about ratatouille.
That is true, but she's also talking to herself in a way where you're like, what? Because she's like, I know it has eggplant in it, but I think people like eggplant. And
no, it's so weird because the joke then is that it's unclear that she's actually doing a recording. So then Natoots enter and they're like, oh God, has she had a stroke? Who's she talking to? Like, what's going on? Is she delusional? Do we need to put Mrs. Garrett in a home? And they're like, they come in and they're like, who are you talking to? And she's like, oh, I'm just recording a message to Raymond, my son. Who would, and I was like, Raymond, who's that? I thought the son was the guy who wasn't in the band.
There's two sons, the good one and the bad one. We met the bad one, now we're meeting the good one.
Okay.
But Natalie assumes that Mrs. Garrett is taping this letter to Raymond because he can't read. Which is the illiteracy episode is actually in a few weeks, so get ready for it. Tootie's boyfriend can't read the label on a jar of artichokes. It's very dramatic.
Okay, so I just want to just go back to what. So when Natoots enter, they assume that she's lost her marbles. They assume that something's going on, and she just, oh no, I'm just recording a letter to my son. I think that's the first time I did a Mrs. Garrett this whole podcast.
Oh wow.
Anyway, and then
it would be. She's the first time she's been on camera for 1 second.
And then Natalie's like, Tootie's like, so she's Tootie, is basically assumes that it's an imaginary friend, and she says, wow, I gave up my imaginary friend when I was 9. So she's being a cunt about Mrs. Garrett. And then, as soon as Mrs. Garrett explains, no, it's a listening letter to my son, Natalie assumes that her son can't read. It's like everyone comes in with the worst assumptions and the most insulting thing possible to say to someone.
Even Mrs. Garrett kind of shits on her son when she's like, no, he's a CPA, so he doesn't have time to read. My father was a CPA, a very successful CPA. Dude read more than anybody I've ever known in my life. Had a library, like 3 books on his bedside table every day, and they were just giant. No, CPAs have time to read.
No, exactly. But I was like, who is this is this Beyonce's, money manager? What does he do? Like he has no time to read. Jesus Christ. Of course, I was like, obviously, this is some stupid plot device.
Yes. Well, yeah, it is. But I guess I liked the plot device. But it is stupid. But one of the things that I remember from this episode is a couple of things that are really memorable to me. One is when Mr. Parker shits on her and then she realizes that it's on tape. She's like, oh, you did hear it. I always I just wish I had a moment where somebody was an asshole and then I had caught it on tape. That is one of those moments. Also, Natalie searching for that boy's anatomy. But very, very good joke. But we'll get to that. So anyway,
so then Mrs. Garrett finishes her fucking letter to her son, right?
With a wet kiss and love to Doris, who is a terrible human being. Wait till you meet Doris.
Don't spoil it for me. Anyway, so she's like, love to Doris, love mom, and then fucking Natalie, like a goddamn asshole, jumps on and says 10-4. Because, and she just explains it saying, I've always wanted to do that.
What, be an asshole on an audio letter from a mother to her son?
Yeah, apparently. But Raymond's never met her.
No, he doesn't care. They're going to drop off the letter at the post office, pick up some film for Tootie so she can look like a tourist at Langley. Natalie doesn't want her to look like a tourist, apparently. Until later on when she realizes that Tootie might be able to snap some pictures of college cock, and then she's like, okay, oh, awesome, I'm into it. But for now, she says, over my dead body, and Tootie's basically okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, I've been wanting you dead for 3 seasons.
Same here.
Mr. Parker arrives for his swan song just as the ladies are about to leave. It's like a greatest hits of everything Mr. Parker has ever said, which is, cater this thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, much like Joe, who basically only has one storyline, poor Mr. Parker only has the storyline. I need to change my already elaborate and inappropriate catering request, Mrs. Garrett. This time he's turning a brunch into a dinner, which is blowing Mrs. Garrett's mind because she had almost very nearly decided on ratatouille. And everybody knows, A, that can't be served at dinner time.
But
and
also,
and B, if you've thought about it and you've recorded it to your letter to your son, it's locked in stone. You can't change that.
Yeah, so they should play the tape for Mr. Parker and say it's in.
It's locked.
Yeah. So again, that's the thing. Also, So she barely has decided on making ratatouille for this alumni brunch.
I don't even think it was official yet.
No, it wasn't. So, and also, who the fuck serves ratatouille at brunch?
I agree. It does seem like something that would be served at dinner. And I'd also like to say this. We learned that Mrs. Vandekamp, who must be very rich and persnickety based on her name, has just come back from Morocco and fallen in love with couscous. And you know what I did? I Googled Moroccan couscous ratatouille. It exists.
Of course it does, because you know what you usually eat couscous with? A stew.
Mm-hmm.
And what's ratatouille? Very much like a stew. Here's the other thing. So Morocco, so couscous is, you know, again, the other weird thing about this, let's just go back to Mrs. Van Camp, right? She just got back from her trip to Morocco and fell in love with couscous.
Mm-hmm. As we all do.
Which I like couscous. Nobody in the world loves couscous.
I actually don't like couscous.
Fair enough. I think it's a divisive wheat. It's a wheat, but
it's like having pasta sand in my mouth.
So but there are a couple different types. There's Israeli couscous, which is like the bigger pearls, and then there's North African couscous, which is more like the sand. But again, the other great thing is that you're absolutely right. And thank you for Googling that. So Morocco, it was a French colony. Ratatouille is a French dish. Nice little, inter-country marriage right there.
Yeah, the recipe I found uses figs. That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Anyway, seems like this is a perfect fit, and now she gets an extra 9 hours because the 11 a.m. brunch was moved to 8 o'clock. If I had 9 hours and you were like, in 9 hours, can you make me some Moroccan food? I would be able to kick ass.
Yeah.
So, and this is not even happening on this day. It's what, in like 3 days?
2 days.
You got time, Mrs. Garrett. Chill the F out.
So, the reason why I know that it's in 2 days is that I wrote down that Mrs. Garrett starts freaking out, and she says she uses her most annoying, guttural, hysterical voice when she says, "This dinner is in 2 days." As though she was possessed by some demon.
Yeah, that seems like more than enough time to make anything. But he wants a sumptuous feast. Mrs. Garrett suggests a belly dancer, and he's like, "Don't I wish?" Barf.
Ugh.
And then he says, "But seriously," she's like, "But don't but seriously me." He condescends to her, tells her he's one of those people that makes stress work for them, and then he just leaves.
Yeah.
Leaving Mrs. Garrett to then scream and giggle and then tell the girls, "I can't go to Langley. Dinner preparations must begin at once for some reason." How long does it take to make ratatouille?
I would say at most 90 minutes. Maybe 2 hours if you're extremely slow at chopping or you have to make a lot. It's also the sort of thing you can prepare in advance and it gets better after a couple days.
Yeah, and you've got an industrial-sized kitchen. You're fine. You will be able to pull this off. But anyway.
Anyway, so then she says, "I can't go. I have to, rethink this whole menu, blah, blah, blah." And Natoots, and she tells Natoots to take the bus. And they're like, and then they're sort of like ganging up on her, being like, "Why do you let him treat you like that?" And she's like, "Because he's my boss and, pays my salary. I don't, what, do you not?"
Like, well, why do you put up with it? It's like, because he's my boss.
It's suddenly they don't understand the concept of work.
Yes, which is weird because they work harder than most kids. Tootie unsociopathically offers to stay and help.
Yeah.
But when Mrs. Garrett's like, "No, fuck no. I'm so stressed out. Last thing I need is you."
Okay,
And Tootie's like, cool, I'm good, bye.
that made me laugh when Mrs. Garrett was like, "No, get away from me.
Yeah.
I don't need your help."
Not the time, Tootie.
And to be perfectly honest, I'm the sort of chef, I'm the sort of person who cooks. If that like if people are like if I'm having a dinner party or like Thanksgiving or whatever, if people constantly keep coming up to me to be like, "Can I help? Is there something I can do?" I have to like give them a very menial task just to get them away from me because I don't need any help. And Tootie can have extremely menial tasks. You know, she can peel potatoes.
She probably thrives on that.
Yeah.
Tootie promises to take a lot of pictures. Nat says no again. This isn't a field trip to the zoo, but Tootie reminds her that, she could get some college boys' penises on film, and then Natalie's like, be discreet.
She's like, co-ed dorms. And I wrote, revenge porn.
I remember when revenge porn first hit the internet. Angry girlfriends getting mad at their boyfriends. It was my favorite. It's gone now, but I liked it when the internet started. But I know that it's wrong.
It's also illegal.
Well, now it is, yes. That's why it's gone.
I mean, Katie Hill, the congresswoman, or she's a congresswoman from California, had to leave her job because of revenge porn.
Oh, so, really? I didn't know that. Well, no, I think it's terrible. When the internet started.
But when Natalie and Tootie do it, it's okay. Because they're little girls.
Well, who are they putting revenge on? They're just going to enjoy that for personal use.
If you take photos of people without their consent and then, distribute them to...
They're only distributing them to each other, back and forth.
And Mrs. Garrett.
Yes, and Mrs. Garrett.
So,
and quite possibly Raymond. I feel like he walks in when she's like ogling some young boys.
And he's like, you want it? She's like, we just went and saw this guy's cock. And he's like, okay, I've seen enough.
I got to get you out of this school. So back at the dorms, the kids are still playing poker in the middle of the day. Long poker game. So weird. Natoots arrives, waiting to meet Blair and Joe.
Yeah.
Natalie warns them not to act young.
No.
Or at least not be so obvious about it.
And but the great thing is that they come in and they stand like together, like the two little girls from The Shining, in the hallway. Like, I've never been in a common room before. Where do we go? Do we sit here? Who should we meet? Should we greet people? Hello. And then,
but they were grinning like weirdos the whole time. They were enjoying it.
They're great. The other funny thing is that Tootie's like, so Tootie basically is doing this thing where she's like, hey, Nat, go stand in front of that thing. I need to take a picture of it. And Natalie's like, no, I don't. Come on, like, be discreet, whatever. Like, Jesus, enough photos. But she's like, hey, Nat, go stand in front of the coffee machine. I really want a photo of that.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear that Kim Fields has never taken a picture in her life because she's like in Natalie's face. There's no way you're getting the coffee machine, first of all. And second of all, like, do you really want Natalie's face that close up?
No, I don't want it. I want it as far away as possible at this point. But also the other great thing is that, so Natalie's basically like, come on, no. What the fuck? I don't want to take a picture in front of the fucking coffee machine. And she's like, it was embarrassing enough that you made me get on the lion in front of the library. See, that's a good photo.
Yeah, I would enjoy that photo.
It also, so the funny thing about this is that it reminded me of a time when I was in college, when I was helping a friend of mine who was, I went to school in Massachusetts, and she wanted, and this was in the olden times when you couldn't just like take a pic with your phone and then text it to someone. It was, you had to actually, like, very much like Natoots, you had to take a camera and take photos, develop them, and then send them to someone so that they could see where you are and what it's like there, right? Anyway, so my friend who had family that was on the opposite coast, she wanted to send photos of the campus, and I'm a photographer, amateur photographer, and
Studied
And
overseas?
yes. Anyway, but she was like, "Hey, can you like help me out with this? Like, we could just do like an afternoon, just take a couple photos, blah blah blah. Like, I just want to show them because it is. We do have a very beautiful campus. It was designed by the same guy who designed Central Park. It's just very attractive. Anyway, the greatest thing about this is that I was like, sure, yeah, no problem. Like, you could also just send them a fucking brochure because that's fun. But I was like, whatever. So we walked around campus to take photos of everything, like the lake, the library,
The bears.
the bears, I don't know, the forest. Who cares? Anyway, the greatest thing about this is that she very much, like Tootie, was like, I need to be in every photo. So she was directing me to take pictures of this, place. And she was like, so I'm just going to jump in. And she was in every photograph, but not in a like holding up the like, Leaning Tower of Pisa kind of fun way, more just like standing there, like, hi, I'm from Delaware. You know what I mean? Like it was this, and I was sort of like, you don't need to be in every shot. I think that if your family gets this envelope of photographs that has your name and your return address and the few photos of you in it, I'm pretty sure they're going to know that it's you who sent this to them. And she was like, yeah, but if I'm not in it, then the photo's not interesting. Which I thought was just a chef's kiss of a response.
Yes.
Like, I want to send this beautiful campus that I'm on to my West Coast family so that they can see what it's like in New England. But I need to be in every one of these. Otherwise, they all suck.
I wish I had that kind of self-esteem. So Tootie awkwardly snaps a picture of the angry poker playing girl who's like, can we help you kids? Which destroys Natalie. But then Barry offers them coffee, which perks Natalie up, pun intended.
Yeah.
Bitchy poker girl says, sorry, there's no milk. Like, all college kids take theirs black. Very weird.
I think it was the implication was that they're little children who drink milk.
But they were just getting coffee, and it was like, sorry, there's no. So it was milk instead, not milk to. Oh, well, Natalie misinterpreted it the way I did too, because she's like, I take it straight.
Yeah.
Then Barry asks Tootie for a cigarette.
And she's like, no, trying to cut down. I mean,
here's like a little jive walk around the.
I know, but the thing is that like, Tootie was almost sold into child pornography. So, and was she also the one that had the night with the baby prostitute?
Yep.
So, I mean, it doesn't, and she also got wasted on that bottle of wine.
Yeah, she's lived. Nobody's saying that.
And
she still seems very excited that somebody would think she smokes.
And she's a poker queen. So, like,
I'm surprised her skills didn't come. She should have told the mean poker lady, who probably is the one who started this poker tournament that's happening all day.
Yeah.
So the guy looks dumbstruck when Tootie says that she's trying to cut down. Maybe he's dumbstruck by the jive walk. I do not know. He just smiles and exits. He asks weird things.
Yeah.
Then Guy shows up.
They're thrilled. But they're thrilled about this whole interaction. The coffee and cigarettes.
And they're going to be even more thrilled because Guy walks in wearing just his towel. Now it's the opposite of before with all the clothes and the towel. Now it's the towel has grown.
The towel is bigger.
Yes, and his nipples are exposed.
His nipples are out, and the toots are visibly creaming their jeans.
Yes,
they are. It was like, and I've made this joke on this podcast before, but it was like watching, Looney Tunes, like a horny wolf or something, like auga, auga eyes, where both of them are just like, as though they've never seen a naked man ever.
They might not have in person. I mean, where are they going to see porn?
A movie?
They're very young. Like, what movies are they seeing? Like, naked men.
Uh, when did Dirty Dancing come out? I guess later.
Way later. But is anybody naked in Dirty Dancing?
They do the whole lift thing in the lake.
Oh, well, they're naked during that?
I mean, Patrick Swayze is. It's not like he's wearing like a weird religious bathing suit.
I think we're confusing naked and shirtless.
Okay.
Two different things. But anyway, so he asks the girls if they've seen his Basic Anatomy, and honestly, it's the best joke.
Hardy har har.
I liked it quite a bit. And then he goes, he's always leaving it somewhere.
So here, and this is the thing. So Natoots are incredibly scandalized by this. They're like, oh shit, he's talking about his dick. And I was like, and then so it's like, have you seen my Basic Anatomy? Immediately you think about his penis, right?
Yes.
And then it's, I'm always living on a rat. And I was like, that's hilarious, because that made me think of detachable penis.
Yeah, me too. 100%.
That I was just like thinking about that. And so then I was like, I haven't listened to that in a while. So that 90s classic is by King Missile. And for everyone who doesn't know what this song is, it's basically like a musical tone poem about a man who gets, it's a banger still, who gets drunk at a party, but he also has a detachable penis. He gets drunk at a party and then wakes up and he doesn't have his penis anymore. And then it's this like odyssey of him looking for his penis and calling people up and searching the East Village for his penis. And throughout it, it's just this woman saying, detachable, detachable penis. And it's just that for 4 minutes. And then finally, he finds his penis being sold on the street on 2nd Avenue by some guy on St. Mark's. And the guy's like, I'm going to need $22 for this. And he bargains him down on his own penis to $17.
$5 off. That's not bad.
That's not bad. And $1992, that's pretty good. Anyway, then there's this whole thing that he's like, I took it home. I took my penis home, washed it off, and put it back on. The other great thing, no, I'm not going to wash it off. It's been, I don't know where it's been. But the greatest thing also about this is that King Missile, I was reading an interview saying, they were like, so, because they were like kind of like a little, like a, 90s rock punk band from the East Village in New York. And like, I read an interview where the lead singer was like, the problem with having like a huge, like a hit like this go big, because I think it reached like the Billboard 25 or something.
Yeah, it was on MTV.
It was always on MTV. And he was like, the problem with this is that people come to our concerts and they only want to hear that. And I was like, yeah, it's no shit, but that's fine. You get paid. Just play that for 4 hours, whatever. But he was like, so the way that we get around that is that we play that first so that everyone who wanted to hear that can just leave. And then he's like, and then we have our true fans. And I was like, who the fuck are those people?
Now, I'm going to say that obviously there's a seat for every asshole, and I am a true fan of a lot of people that don't have very many true fans. So I get it. I
totally do too. But I was just like, that's kind of like a trollish thing. It's like, play your hits. And it's like, okay, we're going to play the hit. You can leave. And then we'll all party.
So he tells the girls if they find his Basic Anatomy to bring it to room 314. Also great. Sorry. And the minute that he leaves, Natalie just starts ripping the place apart like a cartoon character. I loved it. I loved this entire moment. This whole bit was great.
She was tearing through that common room like a horny psycho. And the other thing about that is that to be perfectly honest, it would have been funnier if she wasn't just rifling through like a giant pile of loose paper that was just around. It would have been better if she was throwing sofa cushions and lifting up chairs and pushing.
I agree. They set it up so that she could have a bunch of shit to throw everywhere.
They just had it so it was just like she was just throwing newspapers in the air.
It's like, why are there all these loose newspapers in this common area?
But still, Natalie sold it.
She did. I laughed quite a bit. And then when Blair and Joe answer, she just gives them like the 1 second finger, which I also appreciated. Blair asks about Mrs. Garrett. They explain that she's up to her aprons in cookbooks, which visually makes zero sense to me.
I don't know.
If she said apron, I'd be like, all right, it's like ankle high, but she says up to her aprons, which makes me think like the storage area where she keeps all of her aprons.
It was yeah, I don't know, but I feel like they probably went with like up to her eyeballs, but then they were like up to her aprons.
Oh, so funny.
Oh, that's a cooking joke. Again, that's the thing about this show is that it's like up to her eyeballs makes sense. Up to her aprons is a cooking, barely a joke, but let's go with that. That makes sense.
Yeah. Also making no sense is Natalie asking how the ed is in their co-ed dorms. Blair says it sucks because she has to get up at 5 a.m. to look fuckable, which we discussed to meet the 7 a.m. rush of men crawling the halls. Natalie just vibrates with excitement when she hears that men crawl the halls, and then they go off on their campus tour. And we are now
Natalie is acting like a horny psycho. And again, as she always is, she's the first, as you told me, she's the first one. She's the boy crazy one. She's the first one to lose her virginity. She's like super into the notion of getting those dick pics. She loves, nipples, detachable penis guy. She's just like horned up. And like, she's basically like, again, she's a teenager. She's what, 15 or 16? Right?
16.
Yeah, so, and she's like, Blair, like, how is the ed here? Like, boys crawl the halls. And then Joe fucking yucks her yum. She goes, stop drooling, Natalie.
Well, I mean, it's not really yucking her yum by saying that that's yuck. It's more like, you're yucking me out.
No,
by yumming so hard.
But it's like, no, again, it's just Joe being a fucking, dick. Being like, stop being, horned. And then they go for their campus tour.
So now Mrs. Garrett is busy making hummus for like, what, 4 people? It's a small thing of hummus.
So let's just describe it. Mrs. Garrett is making hummus in a bowl that's about, 8 inches wide, using like the tiniest whisk possible. It's like almost like a fun-sized whisk that you might use for like 1 egg in a cup.
Yes, if Mrs. Van de Kamp's dinner is for 4 people, she's really overreacting.
Yeah. Anyway, and she's just like, hummus, and she just gets all pissy about this hummus.
She says it sounds like something you put on plants to make them grow.
Yeah.
And then she licks her spoon that she's making the hummus with, puts the spoon back in the hummus, and then says, tastes that way too.
So I don't understand why she needs to like racistly shit on hummus.
Why is she racist about it?
Well, I mean, I don't think, to be perfect, I think that hummus is maybe not in 1983, but hummus is pretty widely regarded as a delicious, nutritious snack.
I find it to be one of the grossest foods on the planet, personally. But
you don't like beans, so
I don't. I just really don't like the texture of any
this
kind of bean that gets turned into a paste, which
Okay.
is what this is. I find it unbearable.
Okay. In any case, I do think that she's kind of doing.
Does that make me racist?
No, that's just a taste preference. But I do think that, again, we kind of go down this weird, where she's just sort of throwing out an entire, like, I don't know, I think she's just being weirdly insulting. Let's just say that. Maybe not racist, but again, it sounds like something you would put on plants. So that's a little racist because that's a different language, but also humus is actually something you do grow plants out of. It's a type of soil.
Well, then that's why she said it.
No.
I'm certain that has to be why she said it sounds like something you put on plants because it sounds like humus, which I'd never heard of until just now.
You want me to go long on that because I took horticulture in college?
Of course you did. You're
I mean,
such a hort.
well, no, you can lead a horde to college, but you can't make her think.
This is when Mr. Parker comes in. Oh, we should say she's doing another audio letter to Raymond.
Oh, yes, that's very important.
Or at least continuing, since she didn't have a chance to go to the post office. Maybe she taped over it because of fucking Natalie's 10-4 good buddy or whatever it is. She's like, I'm going to start again. Yeah, so that's when Mr. Parker comes in, total asshole, says Mrs. Van de Kamp is so excited about her upcoming trip to China. How are you with a walk, Mrs. G? That fucker.
And then
also, when he entered, he went, stop the garlic presses. Oh, so clever, but also one, Chinese food has plenty of garlic in it. Sorry, Chinese food has plenty of garlic in it. And two, don't come in with your puns and your bullshit when you're about to ruin someone's day. Fuck all the way off, Mr. Parker.
I mean, he does suck, but again, also, I do think that Mrs. Garrett starts flipping out again about something that isn't, that again, I think at this point is her job. And also, this is Mr. Parker's MO. He always changes plans. She should be more flexible. And what does she say? He goes,
Chinese food requires days of chopping and dicing and slicing.
How handy are you with a wok? And she goes, a wok? And she goes, oh, please, Mr. Parker, a Chinese food menu requires days of chopping and slicing and dicing. I was just like, you know what? At this point, I hope this whole thing goes tits up for Mrs. Garrett, because she hadn't even really committed to making that much hummus. And as though now we have to pivot to making Chinese food. It's not that bad. And also, you have to chop a lot of food. You have to chop a lot of everything for any meal that you're going to make.
I agree. I don't think there's any food that requires days of chopping.
And also, it's so easy and fast to use a wok. It's one of the easiest, fastest methods of cooking possible.
He tells her not to get temperamental. She's infuriated. He wouldn't do that to a professional caterer. And he's like, well, you're not a professional caterer.
Yeah.
Fuck off, dude. First of all, you're asking for a favor. You see that the person's frazzled. This is the way you handle things. Also, the very conceit of her statement says that she is aware that she is not a professional caterer. She's just asking for a modicum of respect. So you don't have to deny that and rub it in. And then third, just fuck all the way off of Moroccan Cliff.
But also, I do think that, like, the other thing is that, like, Mr. Parker, I mean, how much do we see of him after this episode? Is this it? Is this a swan song?
He's got one more episode.
Okay, so I did enjoy him because in this, he was a great antagonist for her. I enjoyed this constant, like, him shifting gears. And because he usually just kind of comes in, says something cunty and leaves, and that's it for his episodes. But this one, there was a lot of, like, conflict with him and Mrs. Garrett. I kind of actually was like, is this a will they won't? Is she going to steal him from his wife? Anyway, but again, the thing is, he comes in, changes, as he said, changes plans again. And then he's like, stop being so temperamental, which again, Jesus Christ, Mr. Parker, pot calling kettle black. Jeez, like, he is unbelievably temperamental.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
And he leaves by saying there's no time to argue. She better get on the stick, chop, which seems callous and racist at the same time. I wrote calcist. Yeah, and Mrs. Garrett realizes the tape recorder was still got the whole exchange. It was still on.
Yeah,
so she pats it and taps it and caresses it like it's a lover and continues to talk. And I'm just thinking this tape is going to be all these loud, muffled, like noises. But she goes on about how she hates being at the mercy of someone else's whims. She imagines being her own boss, but there's no time for that. She's got to go check out the joy of soy from the library.
Yeah.
There are 3 joys of soys.
Joys
Joy
of
of soys. There's one is a cookbook I found from 2000 with a 2-star review. That's all it had from Bridget, and it was written by Dana Jacoby. The review says, "I found these recipes tasty, but there's no nutritional information for any of the recipes. I will probably not use this book very often because of this."
Ooh.
All right,
I
Bridget.
also, I looked I saw that one as well, the 2000s one, and it's because I was so Mrs. Garrett. I presumably, if Mrs. Garrett has to go and look up the joy of soy, it's because of soy sauce for Chinese food, right?
Yes.
So the joy of soy, this cookbook from 2000, is like how to make pancakes out of soybeans and how to make cake out of soy. It's just one of those where it's sort of like, none of this sounds good at all. You know, it doesn't sound exciting. It sounds like you could probably do better.
That's fair. There is better, though. There's The Joy of Soy, a collection of vegetarian cartoons by Vance Lemcule. Here's a review of that book. "A fun book," says Jeremy Stone. "I like this book a lot. I didn't laugh out loud all the way through, though. But a few of the cartoons really hit home, especially the new fad cartoons." That's so true. People think of us as jumping on a bandwagon when the diet goes back to Pythagoras or even farther.
I didn't know that Pythagoras was a big soybean eater. I knew him more as for his mathematics.
Well, now you know. As a vegetarian, Britt, do you like vegetarian cartoons?
I am a vegetarian cartoon.
The cover of this book,
It's so good. It's I wish we could show it to our audience.
it's like a man eating a burger, and it's dark where
Yeah.
he is, and he's gotten terabang over his head, and he looks very distressed. And then next to him in
Yeah.
the light
He
is
looks
yeah,
Mhm.
and in the light is a beautiful, fit woman standing holding a big salad.
Yeah.
Okay, hilarious cartoon.
Yeah. Really.
Um,
Again, yeah. I agree with this guy that reviewed it. I don't think I would have laughed out loud the whole time.
yeah, not the whole time. There was, but here's the book that I think is the one that they were referring to, which is a 1983 book called The Joy of Soy, released by the Virginia Soybean Commission. And it came out a few months before this episode aired. It could be a tie-in. It's only 45 pages. It's $25 on eBay, so I'm not going to get it.
So what you're implying is that this is one of those tie-ins like the Nintendo game that soccer game that they were playing.
Exactly. It's the Virginia Soybean Commission. They have pull.
And they were like, you know who we should try to get? Little girls into soy.
It's never good. You know what we should try to get? Little girls. Girls. So now we're back at the dorm, and it is nighttime. Joe is very loudly sneaking into Blair's room for sex. And Blair wakes up, finds out Joe has officially been kicked out of her dorm, and now plans on sleeping on Blair's floor every night after curfew, which will seriously hamper Blair's college sex life.
Well, yeah, I was just like, what is happening here? I can't believe that Joe just was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go move in with Blair.
Yeah, and Blair says, like, I don't want this. And she's like, well, too bad. You
You
know me, therefore you're punished.
Yeah, so what is she, like a fucking squatter? Jesus Christ, I'm sure she could have gone over to Mrs. Garrett for a little bit.
Yeah, Blair says it's a single room. There's only enough oxygen for one. And Joe's like, we'll get a plant with 2 plants directly behind her in frame. If you're going to even make that joke, just choreograph her to the other side of the room where it's plantless.
Or get rid of the plants.
Yes, that would be good too. Well done, everybody involved. Blair is worried that they'll get caught and Joe will be expelled. And Joe, with absolutely no concern for Blair, says, nah, we'll be expelled. Good night, roomie. And the audience cheers.
again, that's why, like, and I think as I was watching this, I think I was texting you saying, Joe is like over and over. I was just like, I hate Joe with every fiber of my being. Joe is unspeakably awful in this episode. Like, it was just like she kept like really truly bad behavior that no human should tolerate. And then at the end, she gets what she needs.
Yes, she's really out of control, and she'll never be punished for it. It's too much.
There was no fact of life. None.
None.
Act like the fact of life that was learned is act like a cunt and you'll get what you want.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody who acted like a bad person got what they wanted. So yeah. So now we're back from the break, and Tootie is very slowly talking Mrs. Garrett through their newly developed photos of Langley, like she's a real Leo. Natoots has a weird fight about the pictures. Nat says they make the trip look boring, and Tootie says they're her pictures taken with her camera, and they make her happy. And to which Nat just goes, boring. We didn't need this.
No, I know, and that's why I was like, are they stretching here? What's going on?
This was supposed to be the chuffa, the head of the scene talk to make us think that it's going to be about one thing, and then all of a sudden, big shock, Raymond shows up. So Mrs. Garrett points out an interesting picture of a door, and then an interesting picture of a naked boy in a towel, and then all of a sudden Nat is like, oh, not boring. I'm just going to take this bedroom cake, and I'll see you guys in an hour. And this is all done to distract us from the creepy mustachioed man who's like looking in the window in the back, which would be very concerning if I didn't know, hey, that's Joel Brooks. It'll be fine. And it is. It's Joel Brooks.
I was like, what's going on? Who is that man?
It's like Azad Kalata got lost on the set while they were shooting. Yeah, so it's Joel Brooks. Joel Brooks has been working steadily since the year I was born, 1979.
This is Raymond.
Yes, this is Raymond.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
It is. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background on the actor.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it. So he shot out of the gate. He did some episodes of Three's Company, MASH, and Ryan's Hope in '79, and then the world was like, you can act forever, Joel.
Yeah.
His first feature came the next year with Stir Crazy.
He's still working. That's that movie with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor.
Isn't that
maybe I'm not, maybe I get wrong.
I don't know. His first regular sitcom gig came in '82 with the show Teachers Only, which starred Lynn Redgrave, Gene Smart, and Norman Fell as teachers.
I know. I looked that up, and I was like, Lynn Redgrave. Why is she doing this?
Why not?
Why would she be on a weird American sitcom?
Because it's awesome.
She's part of the Redgrave, the Redgrave actors. It's just such a weird choice.
Sitcoms are a respected medium, or at least they were until the 90s. So at that time, it was still fine.
I agree, but it's just an unusual choice for a thespian of this sort to come to America to do 1980.
You would be surprised. Every season, there was usually 3 or 4 famous Brits that were trying to make bank on an American sitcom, often with an American accent. It's a weird thing that happens a lot. Maybe John Cleese did it 30 times.
Maybe she needed to pay some back taxes.
Possible. In '86, Joel Brooks got My Sister Sam, which is how I know him. It was one of my favorite shows growing up and my first experience with death. And in 1990, he was in the Howie Mandel funeral director sitcom Good Grief, which I recommend. IMDb describes it thusly: straight-laced Warren, comma, his sister Debbie, comma, her flamboyant husband Ernie, Howie Mandel, and their transvestite assistant Raoul run a funeral home.
You're saying that this is the precursor to 6 Feet Under?
Yes, this is 1990. The opening credits have Howie Mandel playing golf in a cemetery, knocking balls off of tombstones, and then randomly all the other characters like come into the cemetery, and like Joel Brooks will be like, "Oh, Howie," and then his wife comes, and then they do like a romantic dance. It's like erotic and stuff all around the tombstones. It is a weird, weird show. Highly recommend checking it out on YouTube. He guest starred on Gene Smart's Style and Substance sitcom, as well as Nancy McKeon's The Division. So we know he's at least decent to work with because people were like, "Yeah, come back."
Yeah.
And his most recent roles include Bob Hart's Abishola and 2 episodes of Fuller House, where he played an FBI agent, presumably looking for Aunt Becky. The guy never stops working.
He also, that's the thing, is that I remember him. He also was in, like, Indecent Proposal.
He was
like
in
he's
Indecent
been
Proposal.
But like, and as I was, because I was like, God, this guy looks familiar. And as I was looking through the photos of him on IMDb, he's just, I would describe him as a very, as like a blend of Richard Dreyfuss and Michael Richards. He's just like a very long Richard Dreyfuss.
Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, there we go. In 1983, he's a very tall man, and always has a mustache. And then obviously as he got older, he he got packed it on, but like not in like a bad way, but more in a sort of like avuncular, cool, like he always played like cops or lawyers or detectives, or as you said, FBI agents, or like realtors, or he's always just sort of like a kind of good-humored like man of the law or doctor or whatever. Like you bring him in to make him to kind of bring some sort of humorous decency.
Sure, that's fair.
He doesn't give off a sort of like a serial killer vibe.
He does not, no. Although he does sneak up behind his mother while she's ogling shirtless teenage boys, puts his stuff down in front of a stunned Natalie, whose face says, "Oh, this is how I'm gonna die." Because like she has no idea who he is, and he's just like,
and she's like, okay.
Like, now we know how good of a guard dog Natalie would be if like somebody comes in, just like they go like this. She's like, okay.
Well, maybe the thing is that Natalie is still dealing with her trauma from being raped in the woods from after that Bates party.
Oh, dressed like Charlie Chaplin, yeah.
You mean Hitler?
Oh yes, sorry.
Yeah.
You see a girl dressed like Hitler, and rules are off the table. So Mrs. Garrett is so pumped to see her son Raymond that she reverse introduces him to Natoots. He's very sweet, bringing his mom flowers after hearing how bent out of shape she got about making Chinese food.
Yeah.
And she's touched until he announces he's been there for days, and then she's fucking pissed. But he was working on a business deal apparently, so he's taking Mrs. Garrett's lunch, nice lunch. Offers to take Natoots into town so they can have lunch with him. I'm sorry, they're gonna have lunch with Blow. They're going to Burgers on a Stick.
Yeah, I looked that up.
Yep. What'd you learn?
So, mostly just that, they're like thousands of recipes for burgers on a stick. At this point, they're basically just little sliders.
See, now I thought she was talking about like beef keftas, which is like burger meat on a stick.
That also is Raymond in your apartment?
No, my cat just escaped from the bedroom.
But yeah, it could be keftas, but they also are it's like hamburger, a little piece of tomato, and then a little piece of cheese, and then your bun, and it's a burger on a stick, and it's like you eat it at a party. It's like
sort of stick sliders. That could be a thing. I mean, I could eat a White Castle if you put it on a stick. I could eat it anyway.
I know.
So yes, also home of the secret meat. Tootie adds, whatever the fuck that means. It's a nice place, the Tootie. Sounds like somebody. It's like, why is this happening in Peekskill? Anyway, he tells his mom that the place that they're going to for lunch has the best apple strudel in the world, which feels like a real fuck you to his mother.
Yeah, and she goes, "Excuse me? Better than mine?" And he's like, well, you'll have to be the judge of that, or something like that.
Well, he actually sounded like him. That was weird. Wasn't expecting that. Anyway, so as we then we see it for the first time, Edna's smoking edibles.
Whoa. New set.
Yeah, get used to it because you're going to be there a lot now.
New set. Oh my God. It looked as though he was leading Mrs. Garrett to her death.
They'll make it nice by next between episodes. But yeah, so of course right now it's just the bones. There's tons of garbage all over the floor because that's how realtors prep storefronts for being sold.
So this is the thing. I wanted to know. I was like, first of all, I love the odd and slightly not great choice of just being like why go with Armenian deli? That's fine. You know, I'm sure there are Armenian delis all over Peekskill and, you know, the mid
all over them.
But like, it was just such a strange choice to be like so specific, right? And then you walk in and it looks like a landfill. It looks like these people had to leave immediately, like they had to get the fuck out of there. Like they were like, we got to go fast. Like they didn't clean anything. It was just full of cobwebs.
Yes, the chair that he pulls up for is like 80% cobwebs. He's like,
I know. And there were just like, the other thing is that, and I noticed during this scene, while he's basically saying like, I got this for you, Mom. This is for you. This is your new place. You know, he's convincing her of this.
All this is yours.
And she's like, oh, sweet. I get all this trash. Thanks. I love you. But so he's like, no. Like, let me explain. He's like, you can open this fancy deli. And then he's like pitching her on it, right? Mm-hmm. And she's just like looking around in horror because looks like, you know, the inside of a really awful haunted house. You know, like it's dark.
That's a good one, I think. If it was an Edna's Edibles themed haunted house, it would be the best haunted house.
That's true. But the other thing is that, so as you said, as I said, he's pitching her on it. He's like, listen, like, here's what you can do. Like, he's like, I want to paint the picture, basically. And then he pulls up this chair, which looks like, you know, one of those like shitty white garden chairs that's made out of metal, you know, that has like flowers and whatever. And he's like, it's like, like he's like blowing dust off it. And it's like, you know, a dust storm happens. And then it's like he's pulling these cobwebs off. And it's like awful. And she's just sort of like, okay. And then he's like, doesn't he put something down on the seat so that she can sit on it without getting her, you know, avocado spread dirty?
I believe he does, yes.
So then while he's pitching her on it, and they're discussing it, he's like, so envision this. He's like, you can have your fancy deli. He's like, you know, because you've been dreaming about this. And she's like, dreaming, yes. You know, and he's still very like, tell me more. I don't know what this is. And he's like, think about it. He's like, you can have your exotic cheeses over here and your pasta salad, a suckling pig. And she's
Raymond.
Like,
she gets so mad at the suckling pig.
And he's like, okay. Not the suckling pig. And then there's just this shot and they move away from where all the pasta salad is going to live and the cheese. And they go to the opposite side of Edna's Edibles, where Mrs. Garrett's sitting on her garbage chair. And he's standing there also just sort of like, I think he's like, maybe you can use this as a counter or something. And maybe it's just because they were like, this is flowing great. They're vibing. The acting is so good that Asad Khalata was like, yeah, it's totally fine if this giant thing of white spider webs is just blowing behind Raymond the entire time he's speaking. The entire time. I was like, just cut for 1 second, get the person on set and just pull it down. It was so distracting.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it added to the ambiance, but I get it. Yeah, so she can't quit Eastland is basically the thing that she's worried about. Also, my Eastland autocorrected to Wasteland, which I found funny. But yeah, so what about her girls? I don't know. Can you make them slaves here the way you did at your last job?
Right. So he's like, she's like, well, it's my dream, not reality. And he's like, I bought you this. And he's like, this is for you. And then she's finally trying, she's sort of coming around
Like
to
my dental plan, my
well,
pension plan.
no, I know. But she's like, this means more to me than you'll ever know. Oh. And then he's like, quit Eastland. And she's like, but I love it there. Again, flip flop.
Yeah.
She hates it there.
And then he's like, wait, hang on. I've got a mic drop moment. Let me just pull out my giant tape recorder that I brought just so I could prove to you what you said to me, because I knew we'd be in this situation.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, if you're arguing with your mom about something and then you can be like, okay, I got it on tape.
Yeah.
We're going to Disneyland like you promised, you know.
Yeah, that would be pretty satisfying. I agree.
Effective.
And so the smile starts to form on Mrs. Garrett's face, and that's when the girls walk in, freshly full of stick burgers. Mm-hmm. Tootie thinks the invite was an elaborate way to tell the girls they're too fat for dessert.
I know. I was like, I mean...
Joe gives Raymond her manliest handshake. Then Blair limps in, having tripped over Joe, or what she called a pile of garbage this morning, which, lol. Miss Raymond forces...
Joe is a pile of garbage this entire episode.
I agree. So Raymond forces Mrs. Garrett to tell the girls the life-changing news, and when she starts to, he just cuts her off, can't even give it to her. He's like, no, I'm doing it. The girls are thrilled about everything until Natoots hear that she's leaving Eastland, and then they don't want happiness for this woman that spent 4 years alternating between putting up with their bullshit and enslaving them.
Yeah.
Mrs. Garrett doesn't think she's ready at all for this responsibility, and Natoots doesn't want her leaving until after they both graduate, which is selfish and awful. And then besides, how many quiche eaters can there be in Peekskill?
And then Blair pipes up with, quiche eaters are made, not born.
Truer words have never been spoken.
I suppose. What kind of quiche do you like?
Oh, I love, I obviously love quiche Lorraine is probably my favorite. But that's just like a classic one. But I like any kind of quiche, honestly. Love quiche. And I'm not a huge egg person, so it's pretty interesting. But like I can deal with cocktail sauce, and I hate ketchup. So who knows? With me,
you're just a mystery wrapped in an enigma.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So Raymond points out that she's already made a name for herself in this town. Peekskill and Mrs. Garrett Strudel, synonymous.
I mean, in my mind, yes.
Yeah, mine too. And Raymond starts to explain why he owns the building now. It's part of a 3-cornered exchange that Blair knows all about. Blair explains that when you give somebody another building, they'll swap it, and then no one has to pay capital gains taxes. Everybody looks impressed, and I learned something.
Yeah, and everyone looks at her like, what? And she's like, yeah, my dad does it all the time. And then I can't remember who said that. Was it Joe or was it Mrs. Garrett? It's like,
Mrs. Garrett goes, is it legal? And then Blair goes, yeah, my dad does it all the time. And then Joe goes, oh, so it's not legal. And then Mrs. Garrett's like, how will I ever pay you back, Raymond? And he's like, rent, bitch. She's like, oh.
I don't understand how business works.
Yeah, it makes rent. Got it. Okay. Tootie finds several offensive ways to say that Mrs. Garrett is too old to start a business, just as many as possible. And then Natalie piles on that Peekskill doesn't need another restaurant. Which is like, fuck you.
No, I know, and it's like he does, and then, but again, it does this weird thing where they said then it's like Mrs. Garrett then starts like doing her like she's like her visions. She's like, but it won't be a restaurant.
More like takeout.
Oh, takeout? You say? How novel.
You know, literally my first job was actually my second job, but my second job was working at virtually exactly Edna's Edibles.
Uh-huh.
I worked at a restaurant that had like 3 little tiny seats for two that nobody ever used, and it was all quaint and homey and wooden. And we made croissants every morning. We had a whole cold salad case, whole cold desserts. We did sandwiches and dinners, and we had catering business.
Wow.
It was
So
like literally the same thing.
you worked there.
I worked there for like 4 years. Even when I went to college, I'd come home, and for the summer I would work there. Anyway, I loved it. It was called the Gray Turkey, which is a terrible name
Yeah.
because the owners' names were Gary Graybosch and Selma Turk. Anyway, Mrs. Garrett decides that she's officially leaving Eastland and going into business for herself. Everyone celebrates except for Natoots, who are totally sour grapes. And before we leave the scene, it's worth noticing, since Raymond didn't tell us, that this is not just a storefront, but an entire house with an upstairs, a downstairs, an attic, a basement, everything you could want. Driveway, huge front of house on one side, store on the other, suburban neighborhood on one side, but like busy town on the other. Very, it's the perfect location.
Well, he knows his mom well.
He does. So now we're back in the dorm.
Yeah, and we're also in part 2 of this episode of the premiere.
Yes,
So
I think we're gonna get through part 2 faster than part 1.
we are, but that's the thing, is that so as we close that first it's like to be continued, which I suppose was for syndication, because that's how
Yeah. Did you watch it from the DVD or?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so
DVD had it as one whole thing.
Okay. Anyway, so it's like Mrs. Garrett's in the middle, smothered with Raymond and Blair and Joe, and they're like hugging and everything. And then they just do this quick little like pan, and it's like Natoots just
very concerned
in the corner, just like fuck.
Yes.
Everything, like, I can't believe this. This is unbelievable. Why would Mrs. Garrett do anything for herself that doesn't involve me?
Her career, her life. Stay at this job for 2 more years so you can watch Tootie take finals?
Yeah.
Anyway, so now we're back in the dorm. Blair's setting her hair for the day. Joe's cleaning up after her clandestine finger banging Z's. And she whips her sleeping bag at Blair for no good reason.
Yeah.
She whips it at her. And Blair snaps. She needs to know when she's leaving. It's too much. And she's right.
Yeah.
But then Blair also is like, your things are everywhere. And there's like nothing there.
Yeah, there's nothing there. But again, also the room is very small. And as Blair points out, you have
It's
to.
the biggest single dorm room I've ever seen in my life, but go on.
That's true. Also, Blair points out, she was like, listen, I have no space in here. Your shit is everywhere. And I need you to get the fuck out of here before first snowfall. And I was like, this is an unusual way to tell someone that they need to leave. I need you out by first snowfall. It's like by the rains of the summer. It's such a, and she was like, and then I was like, uh-oh, here we go. She's like, because when I move my winter wardrobe in, I'm not going to have enough room.
For herself, even.
For herself. And I was just like, okay. So again, that's a good Blair joke, because I want to know, how many fur coats does Blair have? 14. Okay, good. Thank you.
14 new ones per winter.
Okay. Makes sense.
Anyway, so let's see here. So we're back at the dorm. Blair's setting her hair for the day. Blair politely asks Joe to come an hour late at midnight instead of the normal 11 o'clock for her night sleeps, which I think that's like totally fair.
Yeah.
Blair has a study date.
Yeah.
And Blair pays for this room.
Yeah.
So, of course. Yeah, anyway. But no, Joe's like, fuck off. I absolutely will not do that. At 11 o'clock, I will be on your floor and in the bag.
No, I know. But also the other thing is that then Joe does this another completely obnoxious thing, which is like, I hate this just as much as you do. Do you, Joe? Really? Then get the fuck out of my room.
Yeah, there's no way she hates it anywhere near as much as Blair does, because it's just like she's getting her problem is being solved. Why would you hate this? Anyway, Miss Ames knocks on the door to speak with Blair.
Yes.
She's in deep shit, so Joe has to hide in the closet. Very unlike Joe. Apparently, Blair hung her garments in the bathroom, and it says on page 12 of the handbook that is illegal. Blair's relieved that it is just about her five pairs of pantyhose that she's decided to hang in a communal bathroom, dripping thoughtlessly into the stall. She promises to take them down and never do that again. Mrs. Ames is my favorite thing about this episode.
Okay, when we get to the scene, the finale, the final scene with Mrs. Ames, we have to talk about that because that's very amusing and weird.
It is, yes. But right now, let's just talk about Miss Ames,
yeah,
the actress. She's played by Cress Mersky.
Wow.
Yes, Cress, K-R-E-S. Mersky, M-E-R-S-K-Y. She's best known for playing Mrs. Wormser in Revenge of the Nerds.
Ah.
Yeah. She will return on a future Facts of Life as Mrs. Jenkins with a G, which is a very weird name. Presumably, her character will have like a wedding in the future that we just don't see, and she gets married, and she's no longer Miss Ames, but Mrs. Jenkins. So I'm happy for her. She got her start in the late 1960s on things like The Virginian, the comic, The Peace Killers, Unholy Rollers. Then she got into doing TV. She did Ironside, Emergency, the new Dick Van Dyke Show. She played lesbian in the park on a Richard Pryor Show episode. She did Wonder Woman, Barney Miller, Taxi. She was Sheila Lumpkin on Open All Night.
You know, I'll say this.
Sitcom.
Sorry, I want to just need to pause you for just 1 second. It's so. What's this woman's name again? Her actual name?
Cress Mersky.
Cress Mersky. So I think because she has such an unusual name, she gets these odd parts that are named that have these unusual names.
Like lesbian in the park.
Yes. In the park is one word, right?
Yeah, that's her last name. And then Sheila Lumpkin on Open All Night, which was a show about a 24-hour convenience store.
Oh.
And then she closes out her career in 1988 on A Murder, She Wrote. I presume she got killed on that, as most of the cast did. And then I find her delivery so mysterious and so alluring. I'm a really big fan of hers.
Yeah.
So Joe comes out of the closet with a pink boa type thing around her neck, tells Blair she's got enough chiffon to choke a horse, and the audience goes nuts.
Again, first of all, what the fuck does that mean?
You ever try to choke a horse? You need a lot of chiffon.
You need a lot of chiffon, and there was no chiffon in that closet.
I thought the thing that was around her neck was chiffon. Am I wrong?
I mean, I guess it vaguely looked like chiffon, but like, if this...
I like thinking about Nancy McKeon being in that closet while Cress Mersky is doing her scene, just being like, secure the pink, what is it? Chiffon, secure the pink chiffon to my neck, get ready to go, and scene.
But I like the it's that the thing is that this garment is not that much.
No, it's like a piece of chiffon. It's very weird that Blair would have a tiny piece of chiffon.
And it clearly isn't enough to choke a horse.
Well, we don't know what else is in that closet. Joe had been in there a lot longer than we had.
Joe had a closet for a long time.
Now we're in Mrs. Garrett's room one last time, where she's on her umpteenth attempt at a resignation letter.
Yeah.
Should be so easy. 6 words, fuck you, Mr. Parker, love Edna. Done.
Yeah. But she's sitting at her desk, in her room, and she's wearing her red house robe, her nightie or something, and she's just got this giant pile of wadded up paper around her. So I was a little unclear. I was like, what is she doing? Is she writing her business plan?
Oh, I knew it was a resignation letter from the minute I saw it, but what I wondered was, where the hell's your garbage can? Do you not have a waste paper basket? Are you collecting these just in case we need to go back and reference them?
I suppose.
And Natalie comes in the biggest nightie I've ever seen.
Yeah. Also, Natalie bursts in without knocking, like a psycho.
Yes. I just wanted to make sure you were still here.
Oh, God. Natalie was the worst in this scene.
Yes, she was. This was her worst scene. And then Tootie comes in also wearing a hideous, but not as bad as Natalie's nightie.
So, yes, Natalie's like whiny and weird and like, I wanted to make sure you were still here. And then Tootie's like, oh, hi. I wanted to see if this bitch was in here bothering you.
Yeah,
and
Tootie's
I was
suddenly on the side of good.
And I was just sort of like, well, that's a weird little, again, fucking flip-flop. But also, I was like, does no one knock in this goddamn house anymore? And I wrote down, get the fuck out of there, Mrs. Garrett. If these two little girls are just constantly walking into your bedroom without asking, there's no privacy at this place.
That is true. But at least Tootie is on the side of good, telling Natalie, leave this poor woman alone, which could be the name of this show.
Yes.
It could also be the name of this podcast, and you're the poor woman.
Mrs. Garrett impression, so yes.
That is true. Natalie whines, Tootie explains, they did their best, they stated their case, and they lost. Natalie whines more. Well, I'm appealing, and nothing has ever been less true.
Yes.
Tootie says that Natalie has been leaving pathetic notes everywhere, including apparently one in Mrs. Garrett's grapefruit. A fortune grapefruit. Tootie tells her it's fine. If she wants to sulk, they actually prefer it. They like watching Natalie sulk. Just go do it somewhere else so they don't have to hear it.
The thing about this is that it's like, so now, roles are reversed. So Tootie's like, the adult in the room who's like, stop fucking whining, you little stupid baby. And then like, get the hell out of here, you stupid baby. If you're gonna act like this, just go somewhere else. Last week, Natalie was like, stop acting like a fucking baby when we go to Langley so that we can find some dick, okay?
Same week, same episode. Well, I guess last week in the... Yes. Yeah, I think it was a week in the show. But from my experience, it was all in the same hour. Mrs. Garrett admits she's struggling to write her resignation letter. Tootie suggests something similar to what I suggested. Except it was kiss off, not fuck you. Mrs. Garrett clutches her pearls upon hearing kiss off, although she got a little wet at the thought.
Yes.
But she plans on showing decorum. She's making excuses for him. He doesn't mean to be insensitive. It's just his way. He didn't mean to hit me. My face was just in the way. Speaking of the literal devil, Mr. Parker has stopped by to tell Mrs. Garrett she should get to work unless she's planning on starving those kids downstairs, which does make me question, what is going on downstairs?
Exactly. This makes me question, Mrs. Garrett is actually bad at her job.
I guess so.
It's
still nighttime.
She should have been up at like 30 in the morning making breakfast for what, 250 girls?
Yeah, write your resignation letter the night before you go to bed.
But also, this is the other thing. As I said, there's no privacy. Natalie barges in. Then in comes Tootie. Now here's Mr. Parker, who comes in to an old woman's private space to yell at her.
And then insults her. She says, can I get dressed first?
No.
And with no regard for her as a human, he's like, no. I don't think you're going to think better with your clothes on. And it's true. I disagree with him. I make terrible choices with my clothes off. I've done it my whole life. So I think she should put on her clothes. And then maybe she'll get, some decent Mugu guy pan.
But also, no, but the thing is that he's her boss. He's in her bedroom and she's in her nightie.
Yes, but he doesn't want to waste all that time with her getting dressed when they're losing valuable luncheon planning time. He's got another lunch ready.
She should sue him. This is sexual harassment.
Yes, this is super messed up. He just wants her to stay in this red nightie until the last crustless chicken salad sandwich is swallowed. Basically what he wants. He wants to serve Cornish rock hens, actually, and she wants to talk.
So there's this next week, there's another, luncheon that they have to plan, which, again, this is a week that seems like a lot of time to plan for a luncheon. Doesn't matter
how time to get dressed.
No, but no matter how, it doesn't matter how much time. Like a week, I could probably feed 1,000 people if given a week, and the resources.
Yeah.
But no. This is regarded as, insane, because now it's kind of starting to piss her off again. But I love the fact that he's like, so I want to do something simple, something simple. And what does he say? Oh, something simple and straightforward. Like a Cornish rock hen. No,
of course.
No, a rock Cornish hen, or rock Cornish hen. Anyway.
Okay.
I looked them up, and the thing is that the difference between a Cornish hen and a chicken, they're the same. They're both chicken, but they're just smaller. So that they're like an individual portion, so that they look very elegant when you serve.
And the rock ones are even smaller, like the size of a rock.
Yeah, even though there are lots of different types of rocks, there are small rocks and there are big rocks. Anyway, they're a breed that originated in the southwest of England, in Devon and Cornwall. Hence the Cornish. And they started in the early 19th century, and they're described as a heavy muscular bird, but they're only like 2 pounds, but they're slaughtered really early on, so they're very tender and nice. And they have a very unusually broad breast, which makes them tasty. But when I looked them up, it was like colors, gray, speckled, brown, also like size, like 8 inches to 10, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like temperament, aggressive. And I was like, wow, like an 8-inch aggressive bird? That sounds horrifying.
I want to know more. All right. So she wants to talk to him. And he's like, yeah, we do need to talk, because Mrs. Van de Kamp hated her moo goo gai pan. Nowhere near enough goo. She would have preferred brunch. And he's like, yeah, you should have thought of brunch. This guy's going to get murdered.
Yeah, and so Mrs. Garrett's just like, you can see it. Like, it's like, it's like her eyes are like going black. Like, yes. She's like the rage bile is coming up into her throat. You can see she's just like about to just like, like a fucking ghost, just like blah, like on him. She's so mad. Like, she's like, oh really? A brunch would have been a better idea? She didn't like that heavy chicken moo goo gai pan that I made, that I rushed to prepare? Huh. Okay. And so it's like, he's like, why? Yeah, he's like, why didn't you think of that before? And then Mrs. Garrett just starts sort of like toying with him. She's like, because that's the kind of girl I am.
Yeah, she facetiously calls herself an airbrain, which is a favorite phrase of Linda Marsh and Margie Peters.
She goes, whimsical. It's like, I guess, Mrs. Garrett.
He says, I wouldn't say airbrain. And she's had enough. And she's like, you, and another thing. And you could just kiss off.
Yeah. And then the crowd goes wild.
Yeah, they did. They loved it. And I loved it too. He needed to hear it. So we're back at the dorm. And
Blair's having her study date with Nipples, right?
That is right. Mr. Missing Anatomy himself, Guy. His mind is being blown because the universe is ever expanding, and he's just like Blair's wardrobe.
It's like he's like, whoa, I didn't realize. He's like that Einstein guy. He was onto something. He's right. He's like, I didn't realize that the universe was that big. It's I didn't know it was that big. I was like, Blair, this guy, like, fucking
do better. Great nipples. You could still do better. He's not going to have all his hair in a couple of years.
I'll say this: his hair is looking a lot better in this scene.
Well, you can thank that shampoo.
Yeah, and
Vidal Sassoon.
no,
he's so weird. When sorry.
This is Blair's secret concoction. Her 3 years before it gets to market, the 2-in-1 shampoo combo conditioner. So
there you go. I mean, that's why she's got such great hair. He's so weird when she says like it's ever expanding, and she's like my wardrobe. He's like, interesting metaphor, Blair. So weird. Such a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
But then she's also weird because she tells him he's got a cute little brain.
I know. I was like, girl, this is not going to work. Like, you can't tell a man that they're stupid if you want to get in the dance.
I'm already shipping those two. But Joe arrives and it's time to kick Guy out. Blair forcefully tells him to stay out of it and sit down. And it was very hot. I was like, yeah, Blair, do it.
Yeah, no, so Joe comes in and through the fucking window wearing what looks like some sort of like painting smock or something and jeans. And she comes in and she's just like, hi, Guy, bye, Guy. And then like Blair, and then Guy is just sort of befuddled. He's like, were you expecting visitors? What's going on here? And she's like, stay out of it. Yeah, as you said, very hot.
Yeah.
And then Joe's like, it's 11 o'clock. He's leaving. I'm sleeping. And
and he's kind of like, wait, what? She's sleeping here? He's not very bright.
No, of course not, because he's like, I don't understand how the universe works. Yeah. Anyway, but again, Blair kind of likes the dumb ones, doesn't she?
She does. And she's like, yeah, the universe is ever expanding. Get out.
Yeah.
So she can deal with ungrateful Polacek.
Yeah. So she kicks him out, and Joe gets into her sleeping bag.
Fully dressed.
Fully clothed. Shoes on too.
We've seen Joe in pajamas. She has them.
She could, but no. She's just putting, like, don't get into the sleeping bag with your shoes. You can sleep on the sleeping bag if you're going to do this.
It's 11 o'clock. She's got to be in the bag. No time to take off the shoes.
Yeah.
So Blair yells at her, says, you know what? Why don't you go sleep on a park bench? And Joe agrees. She says, I've had bag ladies that share more than you. Excuse me? You've had bag ladies?
No, she said, I've known bag ladies.
No, I watched it like 3 times.
Oh.
I guarantee you, she said, I've had bag ladies that share more than you. And it was like, I just got such a visual of like Joe going down to the dock and looking for whatever homeless lady that might be, willing to do something for a piece of strudel. Anyway. Yeah. It also seems like Blair shares constantly. Like you say, these bag ladies share more. Do these bag ladies let you sleep in their dorm at the beginning of their college experience? Give up fucking Guy so you can have a place to sleep? Come on.
Do these bag ladies offer to write you a check for your tuition?
Or like any other thing that ever comes up, because that's what Blair always does.
No.
Yeah.
And
so then
screaming at one another at this point.
Yes. And that's when Miss Ames knocks.
Yeah.
Once again. And just like everybody else in this episode, she knocks, but then she goes, I'm coming in. She doesn't wait. She did this 2 times. It's like her catchphrase, Miss Ames' catchphrase, or the soon-to-be Mrs. Jenkins' catchphrase is, I'm coming in. Knock, 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 I'm coming in.
Coming out. Yeah.
So Joe, who was able to get in the closet last time,
this
time can't figure out how did I hide myself last time. She's kind of like circles the room, and then Miss Ames like, I'm coming in, and so Joe puts the sleeping bag over her head.
Yep.
Perfect. Within seconds, Miss Ames sniffs out this master disguise very quickly, deduces without any reason to, honestly. Couldn't they have just played this like, I'll be in the room and it'll look like, I know, we'll play poker. Everybody plays poker at this school. That'll be a good plan. She doesn't have to say, I sleep here. She could have easily been like, well, fun day. It was fun finger banging you, Blair. Gotta go.
Yeah.
Anything.
Cool. I enjoyed our study date.
Yeah. Guy just left. It couldn't have been like a 3-way study date. Oh, we were just talking about how cute Guy was. He left 8 seconds ago. You know he's not staying. Whatever it is, there's a way to figure out how to get out of this problem that they refuse to do.
Yeah.
It's 11 p.m. It's college. Friends should be allowed to be in each other's rooms. But Miss Ames, she's just psychic. She knows the whole thing.
Yeah. So,
so on the nose.
So she
uncovers everything.
She uncovers Joe out of the bag, right?
Yes.
And she goes, Joe Polnicek. And Joe's just like, this is the first time Joe smiled the entire episode. She goes, you remembered. Okay. And then Mrs. Ames goes, you're living here.
I don't know how we got there.
Yeah, me neither. And then
she's just psychic.
And then she goes, and then remind me this, because this is such an odd exchange. So, Joe starts like explaining and panicking, and she was like, I was broke. What else was I supposed to do? And then Miss Ames goes, I don't know.
She actually goes, gee, I don't know. Like she's like the way you delivered the I don't know was kind of like I'm being antagonistic and it's not my problem. The way she delivered the I don't know was like, oh, what a good question. I thought about it for a split second. I can't think of what it would be. I don't know. But I loved this delivery. And then Miss Ames Joe's like, well, what's going to happen to us? And then Miss Ames is like, I don't know that either.
So at this point, I was just like, what is this? What is this woman's purpose?
I don't know. Miss Ames doesn't know what's going to happen to them. Naturally, she's going to have to report it to the dean. Naturally. Oh, and then she says, but last time, both girls were expelled. Toodles. She tells them to have a great night. She doesn't say, get out. She's like, well, you've already done this.
It's fine.
Yeah. The crime that I'm trying to stop and getting you expelled for, do it.
Yeah. Sleep
do
well.
The crime. Otherwise, I probably can't expel you because I don't know that you've been sleeping here prior to this day. I don't know anything. I'm just psychic and guess everything correctly.
But at this point,
I'm Miss Ames. And I'm about to meet a man named Paul Jenkins in about 3 weeks because I'm psychic.
So that's the thing is that it's like she's like, yeah, I don't know, but I do have to report you.
Naturally.
The last time this happened with 2 girls, they were expelled, which made
one of them was killed.
Which made me think it was like they were hooking up, but it was just such a weird thing. Like, what kind of school expels a student in need who is going to the school who's just sleeping on the floor of another student's dorm? Like
sleepovers are allowed, right?
Yeah, but also it's like this show deploys expulsion as a threat way too often.
Yes. Some might say nilly-willy.
Yes.
So that which gets us into our last scene.
I think so.
Oh boy. So we're at the site of the future Edna's Edibles. It's very barrel heavy set. And it's just foreshadowing all the barrels that we're going to see in the future.
Mrs. Garrett is moving a barrel.
Yeah, it's a barrel of fun.
And it's kind of a small barrel. It's like 2 feet high.
Yeah, there's so many different sizes of barrels. Are Armenian delis known for their barrels?
To be honest, I'm not sure I've ever been in an Armenian deli.
Well, we'll have to do some research. So Natoots is there to help Mrs. Garrett clean up the place. She insists on paying them, but the girls are like, we don't care.
Yeah.
They're mad at Mrs. Garrett for running off, and I quote, nilly-willy to live on her own. Who says nilly-willy? It's willy-nilly. It's always willy-nilly. It's never nilly-willy.
Yeah, it's when they don't want to cut because the acting's going so well.
Yeah, so secondary emotions are ping-ponging all over the place because now Tootie is mad again.
Yeah, exactly. So again, as I said, flip-flop. So, and, she's like, but, thanks, girls, for coming to help. And then she's like, which again, why are they there to help? Just to
tell she's an old woman. She's got to clean up all of these cobwebs and papers and Armenian things.
But just to be pissed at her? So they come in, they're both mad and in a bad mood. And Mrs. Garrett is like, thank you for coming to help. Of course, I'll pay you. And then Tootie says, absolutely, completely out of character, who cares about money?
That is
one person on this show who cares about money. Aside from Joe, it's Tootie who likes to pick up a couple bucks, Well,
I mean, Blair cares about money too.
But what I mean is that Tootie's just the one who's always like, I'm down for it. I'm down for it.
Tootie cares about making it.
Yeah.
Apparently, Mr. Parker hired an industrial food company to drop off vats of slop for the girls to eat. And even worse, he had to split up the Toots into two different dorms. Although I like that Mrs. Garrett thought the sadness was coming from them not living with her. And she's like, no, we're not living together. We don't care about you. Like, even Tootie was like, if I had known I was going to live with Natalie, I would not have been supportive of you leaving. It is because you're leaving that I don't care about that. I care about Natalie. Fuck you.
Yeah. As I said, every single thing, every single character who when they say anything that they care about, it only is refracted through their selfish desires.
Also, when Mrs. Garrett thought that the sadness was coming from them not living with her, she goes, I'll miss sharing a bathroom with you guys too. That's the number one thing you wouldn't miss. Like, you see, who misses sharing a bathroom with 4 other girls?
Yeah.
And you're an adult. But anyway, Natalie is rooming with Georgette, who has no last name, but it is understood there's a school rule that no one would ever have to share a room with Georgette. But besides having no last name, there's also no reason that she is an undesirable roommate. She just is. Whereas at least Tootie's roommate,
here's the
Valerie, well, let me finish my point. Tootie's roommate, Valerie Johnson, gets both a last name and a reason that she sucks, which is that she eats paper, which is not a really good reason to suck. Like, it doesn't affect me at all. You eat your paper, that's fine. I'll eat my peanut butter cup. We're good.
Yeah.
But why does Natalie's roommate so mysterious, Georgette, that no one can live with?
But it's like, she says it, she's like, they have me living with Georgette. And it's like, oh, wow, that sucks. And I mean, at least for me, it gave me the sense that, I don't know, Georgette might be like a constant farter, maybe she's a, constant masturbator. Maybe she's a nudist. Who knows? It's
Any
like,
of those things are fine. Tell us. Like,
yeah.
Just like we learned about Valerie Johnson's paper eating habit, give us a little bit more. Just a little bit. Like, I could even lose Valerie Johnson's last name. Just call her Valerie, then give Georgette something to do.
But so, the funny thing is that when they say that Tootie is living with Valerie Johnson, Mrs. Garrett, upon hearing that, looks at Tootie and says, Valerie Johnson? Isn't she the one that eats paper? It's as though Valerie Johnson is it's as though they made Tootie live with Robert Durst or the Candyman. It's so bad that and then it's she eats paper. I looked this up. So because I know kids that eat paper, and when kids eat paper, it's usually it's a form of pica, which is called like, what's it called? I have it down. Xylophagia, which usually means for children. I mean, in adults, it might be a sign of mental illness, but in kids, it usually means that they're not getting some nutrient, so that they want to eat weird stuff that's non-food, like dirt or clay or paper, because they're not getting something in their diet. Which
I only find I've eaten paper only when I forget to take it off of the cupcake.
Fair. Again, but if, this Valerie Johnson is eating paper because she's not getting all of her nutrients, that's on Mrs. Garrett.
That's true. Good point. Good point. Also, very weird exchange. Natalie goes, she is so gross. And Tootie goes, she's not that bad. And then Natalie goes, not if you like paper.
But
what?
I get, but also that's the thing. Not if you like paper. I guess.
We all like paper. Maybe don't like eating it.
Yeah.
Finish your thought. And also, it was such a weird exchange. I have no idea why it happened. But then Mr. Parker shows up at the store, also through the window like a freak, because that's what the men do on this show. If they're going to be in a scene, you have to see them in a window to prepare for their arrival.
And Mrs. Garrett is incredibly excited to see him.
Yes, she is, even though she shouldn't be.
She's so excited. She's like, oh, Mr. Parker, please come in.
And she announces without any ill will, welcome to Edna's Edibles. And our store has a name. He's like, it's a mess. Kiss all the way off, you asshole.
Again, that's the thing about this show. It's it's like the way that people communicate in the show is that it feels as though they were never taught properly how to convince anyone to do anything. So Mr. Parker, during this scene, has come to literally beg Mrs. Garrett to come back to work at Eastland. And he comes in, and Mrs. Garrett is like, welcome wagon. She's so excited to see him. She ushers him in. She's like, oh, Mr. Parker, welcome to Edna's Edibles. And he's like, this place sucks. You want to come back to work? It's like, no, you don't say that. You say, wow, this place looks amazing. It's so it seemed like a lot of work. It's like you praise people before you butter them up. You don't say this place is disgusting.
Yes, no, he does not know how to do that. He does ask for her to come back, and everyone's delighted in the room. You can see, well, he's explaining, he's having doubts about Rapid Express caterers.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Garrett's like, Rapid Express sounds so delicious. Tootie chimes in. You've seen their ads in the yellow pages. Every that a work of art. Couple things on this. Why is Tootie looking in the yellow pages for caterers? Why is she assuming that everybody looks in the yellow pages for caterers and they all have all the ads that are in there memorized? And then third, Rapid Express is a very redundant name. Fourth, they're boasting about their use of VATs. Come on, guys, be better. Everybody involved, from Rapid Express to Linda Marsh and Margie Peters to Tootie, everybody be better. Mrs. Garrett suggests maybe they find a better replacement. Mr. Parker says nobody can do what you do, which is give them veggies and potatoes and apple strudel.
And Tootie's like, and advice.
And he's like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it.
No, I don't. Shut up, little girl. And it's like again, Mr. Parker has somehow managed to completely misconstrue Mrs. Garrett's appeal.
Yes. Also, Tootie might think that Mrs. Garrett has some wax in the ears because she is about 2 feet from her head when she says, and advice 16 times.
But again, as I said, Mr. Parker has seemingly somehow, it's in such an idiotic misapprehension of why the girls love Mrs. Garrett. It's not because of her cooking. It's only because of her love and care and advice. Not
and the veggies.
and the but again, remember when she has her menu board and she has potato on it.
Potato. Yes. There was a reference to the menu board in this episode. I didn't write it down, but somebody did bring it up. It was like you could pack up your menu board or something like that.
Yeah. Anyway,
he says he's there on his knees.
No. Hold on. I want to go back because there's something extremely annoying that happens here.
Okay.
So, Mrs. Garrett's just sort of like standing there like, I'm listening, you know, potatoes, fresh veggies, strudel, advice, you know, and then, and she's sort of like, you know, and she starts milking it very obnoxiously, you know, and she's sort of, and she's like, and she walks across the stage and she goes, "It was nice to know I was appreciated." Like a coy little schoolgirl, you know? And then Natalie comes in screaming and she goes, "Appreciated? You were worshipped." And I wrote down, "Natalie, you sent Mrs. Garrett to jail."
That is true.
So Mrs. Garrett, again, is better off without you four fools.
So yes, he says he's there on his knees, but he is standing. So they look expectantly at him till he finally starts to bend. And then Mrs. Garrett's like, no. I appreciate that you're willing to humiliate yourself for me, as though it's one of her kinks. But she has made up her mind. He says the school's going to crumble without her. The moral fiber will decay if she's gone. And she shuts him up by saying, "I'll still cater your wife's parties." And he's like, "Oh, you will? Then I don't care about this fucking school. If you're going to do that, then that's great." And she's like, "You're going to have to pay." He's like, "Oh, you're not going to cater my wife's parties for free, even though you don't work for me?" I guess. So if Mrs. Garrett's such an invaluable caterer, why treat her like dog shit? And really, was she really that great? Because Van de Kamp said that her Moo Gai Pan sucked.
Yeah, no, I know. And the other thing is that it's like, is that he's like, you know, Eastland would fall apart. It will fall apart if you're not there.
It will fall apart if he keeps running the school. The fact that he was confused that he would have to pay her is telling. He should not run a school.
No, and that was the thing. I was like, what the fuck is this school made out of? You know, earwax and dust? It's confusing to me and also it's like he's sort of shitting on himself. It's like, I don't understand. She's the school dietitian.
It makes zero sense to me. But he tells her she will be a darn good professional caterer, and I hope she spits in every dish she prepares for his wife's banquets.
Yeah.
And as he leaves, Tootie's like, "Oh, what the fuck just happened here? I thought you were gonna get her back." And he's like, "No, I got what I needed. Go fuck yourselves. I don't care about any of you." Yeah. And then Joe and Blair enter, and he's like, "How's college?" And Joe's like, "Terrible." And he's like, "Go fuck yourself too. I'm out." And that was it.
And I was like, I hear you, Mr. Parker. You got what you came for, and here's pissy Joe and all these little children, you know, being obnoxious. Just get out of there.
He's gonna go study his lines for his one last episode. Yeah. Joe tells Mrs. Garrett that she's leaving Langley. She's going back to the Bronx to be poor in peace. And when asked any further questions, they're all answered extremely cheerfully by Blair, who's clearly memorized the fuck out of this monologue and is very excited to deliver it. And it does nothing but sum up the subplot for the past 40 minutes.
Which is fine. Which is what we've been doing.
Yeah, it's what we normally do. So it was what we've been doing, yes. Apparently the dean said Joe's on probation. No explanation. Why did this turn out like, unlike the last two girls who were expelled? I don't know. They're never going to be told. But Joe is sad because she can't be broke and on probation and without a job in Eastland, but she could be doing it in the Bronx. Mrs. Garrett has a crazy idea for her. Why doesn't she work for her and live above the kitchen? I know it's weird and you've never done anything like this before, but maybe, just maybe, you'd enjoy it. Joe's like, yeah, I guess. But Blair likes this idea more. Joe's like, I can't sponge off anybody, unless maybe it's Farrah Fawcett. I could sponge her off. Joe thinks to herself.
Yeah.
Mrs. Garrett points out, this things you'd be sponging off are this disgusting table and this cobwebby chair and shit like that.
Windows and whatever. But then, but this is why, like, this is where I was just like, Joe needs to just, shut the fuck up, because
she's like, is this all on the level? Like, is this a mafia deal? Yes, it's on the level.
It's your 65-year-old, mentor / house mother who's just opened up her own business. Like, is she lying to you? What the hell do you think is going on? But also, this is where I was like, and also I do think that we should mention the fact that, so Blair enters wearing a very fetching, like, cute blue denim shirt and a blue skirt and these nice high-heeled boots. Joe enters wearing a oatmeal colored, like, sweatsuit. It looks like she's already in a woman's prison. And the weird thing is that this is where we're basically like, the fact that that an old woman is inviting this weird 18-year-old girl to live with her is already odd. But the fact that, Joe, it's not like, she doesn't know Mrs. Garrett. It's not like Mrs. Garrett's going to be some strange new old lady roommate that she's suddenly living with. But it's like the fact that Joe constantly rejects help is pathological. It's like she needs therapy.
She does. She definitely does.
Yeah.
And so Blair points out that this is more than on the level. Mrs. Garrett's going to need so much help with this, that, the other thing, catering, deliveries, cleaning, shipments. It's kind of almost too much for even just two people, don't you think? Mrs. Garrett starts to panic, but Joe comes up with this great new idea. What if I move in? Mrs. Garrett promises to work her till she drops, and whatever writer keeps perpetuating these indentured servitude plots applauds loudly in the audience. You can hear it. Just like that one writer was like, yes! Even gives a woohoo, even though nobody else makes a noise. But then the Toots get an idea. They want to live with Mrs. Garrett too.
This is where I started to lose my mind.
Joe sidles over, and I think that Joe's going to be like, there's more than one room, right? Because I am not sharing it with these two assholes. But instead, she's like, they got a point. We should all, hang out in that room above there.
This is where I started losing my mind, because I was like, if I were Joe, and as I said, as I weirdly flip-flopped on this, suddenly being like, yeah, it's cool to live with a 65-year-old woman, if she thinks it's her own idea, which is obnoxious and ridiculous. But like, as soon as the 14 and 15-year-olds want to move in with the old lady, then I'd be like, no, I'm going back to the Bronx. I don't want to live with this old lady, and I don't want to live with these children. I've had enough. I'm just going to transfer to City College of New York, which is cheap and almost free. I'm just going to go there.
But the big question is still up in the air, which is, will Mr. Parker let them live off campus? Mrs. Garrett says she's going to talk to them, and then she goes, after all, our relationship's on a new plateau. She delivered it exactly as I could imagine Cousin Jerry delivering that line, and no other human on the planet.
The thing is that really, Miss Cousin Jerry, I thought it was, the thing is that because Mr. Parker said that to her, he said, like, I'm so glad I'm not.
Well, I know she was trying to parrot back him, but it sounded just the way Cousin Jerry delivers her punchlines.
Well, because she kind of shimmied into it. It was like sex. She's
Did
like,
shimmy into it.
she was like, we're on a new plateau.
Anyway, so pending parental approval, this is a deal, and spoiler alert, they get it because we never talk about it again. Mrs. Garrett walks up to Blair and says, you know, nobody's ever said this, by the way. This room is big enough for 4. No room is big enough for 4. No 4 people should share a room, especially 2 college students and then 2 high school students. No, room is not big enough for 4.
But the thing is that so after they've hatched this plan that they're all gonna, happy as a clam, gonna all live together. They do pan out, and Blair's just like walking around them, and she's just like all sad like this. She's acting sad. She's like, and then they're like, yeah. Judy's like, come on, the 4 Musketeers back again.
Yeah,
and then
Joe even says it wouldn't be so awful.
And then Blair says, "You're all so terrific. I don't know what to say." And then who says, "How about yes?" Is it Mrs. Garrett?
I think Mrs. Garrett says, "How about yes?"
Yes. And then she just goes, "No." And I was like, Blair, good. Stay out of here. Get out of this morass. Go to Gamma Gamma House. Get out of here. Go enjoy. Go pledge that sorority. Go live at Gamma Gamma House with your brass bed and your view of the orchard and your giant double closets with shoe racks. Shoe racks. Can you believe it? And Joe's like, and she's like, I'm so excited. And Joe's like, well, we can't compete with shoe racks.
It's true. So then finally, Mrs. Garrett corrals all the girls to start cleaning up the store. Blair puts her hands on her hips, enjoys the view, and Joe's like, just because you're not living here doesn't mean you don't work here, asshole. Throws a broom at Blair. We freeze in midair because it probably hit her in the head. And we are out of our first episode of season 5.
Wow.
Yeah, that took longer than I thought.
Yeah, because it was a double episode.
Yeah, no, I know, but we've done double episodes and gotten them right at the 2-hour mark, and I thought we could do it because I didn't think much happened, but a lot happened.
And
everything
changed. That's the thing. It was all in the fucking first episode.
That's how you get viewers. They were just kind of treading water. Anyway, well, I will say I enjoyed this episode.
No.
And next week we got some continuity, Gamma Gamma or Bust. And I believe we will be meeting Jamie Gertz's character, Bootsy, who is one of my Bootsy.
Oh, Bootsy.
Like Collins. One of my favorite recurring characters on the show for sure. So with that, do you have any final thoughts?
As I said, I've kept bringing up the fact that, the thing about, especially about this episode and just in general, that there's so much sort of like odd flip-flopping between, this weird, it goes from like Mrs. Garrett is an incompetent cook who gets stressed out at, boiling an egg, but then it's like, no, of course, Mrs. Garrett can open her own catering business. She's amazing. Like, of course, it's not, so it does this weird flip-flopping thing, which doesn't make for a very coherent show. So it kind of feels as though I'm wearing a broken flip-flop, which is not a very functional shoe, and neither is this a very functional show.
I believe that she's good at cooking. However, she's meticulous. Takes her a little bit long to do something that she's never done before. And I also think that Mrs. Vandekamp was an asshole and just wanted to shit on the Mugu Guy pan.
Okay. So
but,
let's blame Mrs. Vandekamp.
Well, she was mentioned more in this episode than like the girls were. At least that's what Mr. Parker cared about. But anyway, we almost don't have to deal with his bullshit anymore. We got one more to go with him. But next week, the girls are going to experience their first big catering order.
Hope that goes well.
Gamma Gamma or Bust. All right. Well, Britt, it was lovely. I missed you all summer, even though we did speak and hang out. But I miss doing this.
Yes.
All right.
I did too.
Well, until next time, hasta la pasta salads. Bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna get this thing.